Is everyone ready?
Yeah.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The October 1st, 2020 village board meeting is called to order. Roll call shows that everyone is in attendance tonight. 3 agenda changes. If there are none, we will move on to 4, consent agenda. We have the September 17th, 2020 regular board meeting minutes. B is September 17th, 2020 committee of the whole minutes. C, licenses and permits. D, presentation of accounts and other claims against the village. Are there any questions? If not, could I have a motion, please?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
High school football
Second.
field has a really good sound
Move
system.
to approve the consent agenda.
The football field.
Second.
Okay, roll call. Julie?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion carried. 5 is pre-registered citizens to be heard, and there are none. 6, committee reports, there are none. 7, unfinished business from previous meetings, there is none. 8, new business. A, possible approval to initiate village administrator recruitment process. And we would just be looking for a motion to go ahead with this.
Yes. And to accept the position announcement and materials as proposed.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to move forward with the materials proposed by PAA or PPA? PAA, as well, including the administrative position description and the other items discussed with the filling the position, as well as the agenda moving forward. The timeline.
I'll second that.
And could we have a roll call? Julie?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
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 Motion carried. B, consideration of Ellers debt service modeling proposal.
Mike's unmuted. Are you ready, Dave?
Yes, am I on screen or am I just up to?
You're on the
Just came up.
You're on screen and on Zoom, so they can see you.
I don't know if that's a good thing or not. Do you want me to share my screen, or do you want to just have me tell you what page number I'm on and you have something in front of you?
I would think,
Share the screen is what they were
Okay.
asking.
I think that's what Sean said, right?
Oh, let's see here.
or not.
Now, let's see here. Oh, that one says draft. I don't want that, do I? So, we'll do the PowerPoint. Okay. Okay, so this isn't a proposal really as much as going through kind of a plan that staff and Ellers put together on your behalf for your consideration. So we're going to kind of walk through what we came up with that we wanted to present to you. So the agenda for what we're going to talk about tonight is I'm going to give background as to why this came about, go through some goals that we think are important, talk about the equalized value, give you an indication of what your debt profile looks like today, which we call, at Ellers, we call it your base case. And then we've got a couple of options for you to consider as far as some of the things that we came up with, and then just some wrap-up comments. You know, the reason this kind of came up is staff and I were kind of going through a few things with the financial statements and the TIDs. As you know, we've had a few things with TIDs going on lately and reporting. And I kind of looked at the fund balance of the debt service fund and just said, hey, you know, there seems to be a fairly large balance in there. Do you know that's for. And so we kind of did a little digging, and you know, the auditors weren't really sure how come it was that big. And so the staff and I, when we were on that call, kind of went back year after year, and it kind of goes back to early 2000s where the balance in the debt service fund kept growing. And what we kind of looked at is why was that? And what we found is that we were levying for all the debt service payments, but some of those debt service payments had other funding sources, such as special assessments or transfers from the TIF districts for their share of the debt payments. So over time, we kind of accumulated a decent amount of money, and that kind of is what I think led to us kind of bringing this plan to you, as well as kind of figuring out how we're going to fund future projects as well. So one of the goals is kind of figure out, you know, what are we going to do with that? The other thing would be is to provide you with a roadmap on how you might be able to spend those debt service fund reserves down. And then also to give you maybe a plan that you could use, could update on an annual basis that could show, you know, if we do these projects, how does that affect the debt service tax rate, which obviously goes into your overall tax rate, and how can we fund things while stabilizing that tax rate for projects, while also giving some tax relief to the taxpayers. So some observations that came out of this is, like I said, over the last 15 to 20 years, we've been accumulating about $1.5 million in debt service funds. And, you know, some of that money, you know, like I said, the special assessments were collected, but they weren't being applied the next year to reduce the levy. So we're kind of hanging on to the money and still levying the full amount of the debt service. Another thing that you'll see in the plan is that you'll really see that your existing debt payments start to really drop off as far as the levy goes. And it really drags the tax rate down pretty fast over the next 2 years. And then the other thing is you don't have a plan in place to kind of do what ifs on, you know, if you have some big projects, how does that affect your tax levy, you know, your debt limit and the tax rate? So this is kind of, will give you a tool that you can use to see what happens when we do certain. The item in front of you is kind of a graph of the equalized value. The green is supposed to be the historical, but as I was kind of going through this, I realized that 21 is obviously not historical. So I apologize, that should be a blue bar, but this is kind of a historical plus a futuristic look at your equalized value. Now, the big jump you see from 18 to 19 was that PID 2 closure, which was a very nice jump. It helped you obviously get a little more tax room. You could add things to your tax rate, as well as it also provided some tax relief to your taxpayers, dropping the mill rate down. For this plan purposes, we basically, I think we have like a 2% growth rate on the tax rate, which I will come up to in a couple of slides, but I thought I had that in here, but I think we use 2%. So that's what that graph is growing by over the next few years that you see on this graph. Oh, actually it says it right underneath it. Conservative. 2% growth is what we use in this, but you've averaged like 6.46 over the last 5 years. So we hope that 2% is conservative. This schedule is what we call your base case. This is where you are today. So we have about, going into 2020, we had about $900,000 of principal and interest payments. Those aren't all paid by the levy though. Tax incremental district number 3 pays a portion of them. The water and wastewater utility pays a portion of them. And then we had some funds applied, which basically nets us down to the tax levy that you had on the tax roll this year. So as of 2020, you had a debt service tax rate of about $3.18. So then you kind of see where the tax rate really starts to dive. You actually have a dip in your net debt service tax rate of about $300,000, actually almost exactly $300,000, because certain debt issues are starting to be paid in full. So it really, you know, you're getting a really big drop. It's a possible time that if you if you want to maintain a certain tax rate, that you could plug in a project and have some debt payments, and keep that tax rate more smooth. So it's something that we're going to show you on some ideas that staff and then we built into the model had that we wanted to present to you. Now, one of the things that we talked about, we have two options that I showed you, but really there is a third option on the debt service dollars that are remaining. If you did nothing as far as issuing new debt to do projects and you wanted to use cash to do projects, it's possible you could use all of the remaining debt service money that's in there to do projects, financing it with cash. So you would have this big drop in the tax rate, and then you would be able to fund potentially future projects with this cash that's in the debt service fund. One idea that I know that it is something that's in your mind for the future is the downtown, and it's possible that there are things that are outside of the TIF boundaries that you might want to use that money for, so maybe you'd want to earmark it. So that's just an idea of if you did nothing and you didn't borrow for any projects, you could use it toward, some towards doing those annual projects, or you could use it toward, some downtown stuff. So that's kind of the first option that was discussed. So now we'll talk about option one as if, we're going to go ahead with funding some projects. So the assumptions we made on the first option was to issue debt semi-annually for 2 years of projects. The estimated projects the staff wanted included was about $400,000 per year, so we would borrow for about $800,000 a project, and we'd borrow like end of this year, end of 22, end of 24. Like that could change depending on depending on how we structured it. We definitely want to have, if we don't want to have that big drop in the debt rate, you might want to have that debt approved for next year's projects at the end of this year, so you could include that in the debt service budget, and then that debt rate won't drop off so fast. This assumption also, or this option also includes using available debt service fund cash to refund the 2014 state trust fund loan, the 2017 bank note, and the 2020 bank note. The other thing, the other thing that this option would do is it would hold that debt service money and use it to pay off the 2013A bonds that are callable, I believe, in 22. Then we'd use that to downsize that. We'd use that cash to downsize that refunding because there'd still be a balance owed after applying this cash, but we would be able to downsize how much is owed on it and be able to set up a new debt for the amount of time that we needed and structure it in a way that it would fit your tax rate. And then the third assumption was that the debt issues that are shown on the financing page are on a competitive bid. But what we would do if you decided to go the borrowing way is that we would do a comparison of, if we did this competitively or negotiated with an underwriter directly, how would that compare to going to the bank and seeing which option is the lower cost? So we would try to find you the lowest type of financing out there, whether it was the bank or maybe talking to a banker's bank who is an underwriter that would fund your issue, which would have some issuance costs, and just figure out which one's lower in financing costs. So here's the financing plan schedule for option one. We have it in 3 years. So what I did with this one is for the $800,000 for the 21 and 22 projects, I had that in the same column as paying off those 3 debt issues. So you see the amounts that are being refunded for the debt issues, the principal and interest equals exactly what we're going to use out of that debt service fund cash. So basically that amount is 0. So then we're just funding the capital projects fund, and as I said, this has the financing cost as if it was like a market issue, and then we would end up having a debt issue for $860,000. And that's just a placeholder. Like I said, we would do a comparison to a bank note to see which one is cheaper. Then in this option, we have, in 22, when that 2013 bond is due, we would do the borrowing for the capital projects for 23 and 24, and then we would apply the remaining amounts of the debt service fund money to that 2013 bond, and it would downsize that issue in such a way that the levy portion would basically be cut in half, and then we'd still have to refund the TID 3 portion of it, which is included in that debt issue. So we'd have a debt issue in that year of $2,535,000. And then issue number 3 would be your 25 and 26 projects of $800,000, and that's how that one flows. So the results of doing that type of option, and this one's small. Do you have this in front of you that you can see it so it's not small? I can try to blow it up a little bit. I don't know how big your screen. How big is your screen?
Not big enough.
Yeah. I don't think
Not big enough. Okay.
Paper copy.
Well, I can go. That's as big as I can get. Is that visible?
That's more helpful.
A little more.
That can't go any farther. It doesn't look like.
Here,
No, I could.
except it's very small too.
Yeah, it is.
Seriously. Yeah. Keep these a little more clear.
One of the 6 different attachments.
Tell me, Brad.
You getting ready to leave? Yeah. In a couple minutes.
You ready?
Did we lose him or?
I had very limited money when I bought that. Just so you know.
Well, that.
You can continue.
It's very
Yeah.
affordable.
Go ahead.
Nathan, are you almost ready?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're ready.
Okay. So left side of this page is the base case that I showed you earlier, where you can see that actually this is the base case if we had refunded that debt. So you can see it really drops off if we refund that debt as far as what's left over. And so that's what's left over of the existing money if we refund that debt, all the debt that's out there. And then we have built in here in the pink section the 3 debt issues, and we're using current rates that are negotiated right now, which are almost, unbelievably low these days, as an interest rate. So you can see how much the financing is on each of them with principal and interest. And then we show, because we're refunding, part of this is going to be, part of that 2022 bond would be paid by the TID. That leaves us with how much needs to be covered by the debt service fund, which is, 6 columns in. And the net debt service rate is the column with the $672,000. Now, staff was very interested in trying to provide some tax relief along with this as well, by keeping the tax rate up, but also bringing it down and feathering that tax rate down over time. The only thing that we haven't really nailed down in this process is what is an acceptable tax rate for the village, to have. So, whether we draw the 25, I couldn't get $25,000 exactly because of how it calculated, but we were trying to hit that $25,000 a year drop. So, that's something to consider as well, is what's an acceptable tax rate. When we do financial management planning for some of our customers, that's one of the policies that they set. When I was a finance director in Wanakee, we had a tax rate policy of $2.25, but Wanakee is kind of a spoiled brat community that has a lot of growth, and you guys are actually having some pretty good growth too. So it's something that you could feel out as well, as far as what's an acceptable tax rate that you think would be something that we it would be the maximum, and we would try to structure your debt to stay under that. So this is the option that kind of gives you a stable tax levy in the debt service fund, but also brings down the levy dollars, $25,000 a year. And you can see we come down from the $3.18 equalized tax rate down, flowing downwards, giving you flexibility in the future as well. Maybe I should pause there to see if you have questions before I show the second option that we talked about. Don't be afraid to really work me here, because you know this is a lot of numbers, and if I can make this mean something to you more than just staring at a bunch of numbers, I'd be happy to try to make you help you understand what I'm trying to show you here. So.
Well, for my input for that, that would take a lot, because I'm just staring at a bunch of numbers. Most of what you just went through went right over my head.
Okay.
I don't have an accounting background, so I'm not following with. I read through this all before and paid attention to what you're doing here, but I can't.
Yeah.
I don't make heads or tails of any of it.
So what we're trying to do here is be able to do a set amount of projects which staff had identified in the CIP, and to do so by having a tax rate that's not bouncing up and down, because if you're the one collecting taxes, the last thing you want to do is have your tax rate go down and go back up and go down and go back up. So what we're doing is we're putting in projects, basically 400,000 projects a year, and showing how you can fund those projects without having a bouncing tax rate.
Okay.
Jim, did you get the first part he was talking about, this existing 1.5 million that
we didn't spend, that we collected, that we didn't spend.
Right.
We didn't spend year over year on what we collected.
That's a big thing, right there.
Yeah, I got that.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we're trying to figure out.
And what really helps there is you know, back on the page where we did the base case, which maybe I can get back to. Let's see.
Yeah, that was the last thing that I understood.
This was your base case here, and really the debt payments for the tax levy go out quite a ways here, and so by refunding some of that debt, we can kind of shorten up how much we have in payments by applying those monies. So this is what it looks like before we do anything, where we have a tax levy going all the way out to 2033. By doing this plan, whoops.
When you say this, what am I supposed to be looking at?
By taking the option of using.
I'm looking at the page, but what am I looking at? Where am I looking on the page here?
Oh, I was going to go to the page I wanted you to look at. I was trying to get there.
Wasn't he on page 6?
So instead of going out to 2033, by using that money just to pay down debt, our debt payments end in 2022. Well, we end up refinancing some of that into, you know, the money that's more general debt service would actually end in 2027, because there would still be some debt left after we applied all that 1.5 million. And then these payments that are out farther are for kid 3. So really what it does is it pays off most of your existing general levy debt and gives you the opportunity to set up a plan where you're able to fund, at this point with what staff gave me, about $400,000 of projects each year.
It's really just planning the project so that the tax doesn't keep the water level at this level.
Slowly goes down.
Before,
Correct.
so you know, you pay off debt at this rate, that means you can take on this to keep the water level here so that your tax income doesn't change because of your expense balance.
So, and our debt service rate, debt service tax rate, that's
The rate that they're being charged.
So this $3.18 is what the tax bill says this year.
per thousand of
Assessed value.
assessed value.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you have a $100,000 house, your debt service payment on your tax bill was $318.
Okay,
So what we're doing is not only are we refunding a bunch of debt, but we're also building in projects to keep that tax rate up there a ways, because, you know, if you decide you're not going to borrow to keep the tax rate up, it's going to take a big drop. So then all of a sudden, if you have a big project, you're going to have a big jump too. So, you know, it's kind of a way to stabilize what that tax rate is, so it isn't bouncing up and down.
You don't want to get all your debt too low, because then you have no right to charge the tax level that you're charging. So if you don't keep your debt at a certain level, you end up getting to the community. Well, this year you're paying 4%, next year you're paying 1%, then you're paying 3%. So you have to plan to keep it kind of even keel.
It all balances against this.
yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, the best case scenario you could ever have is that you have no debt and you have all kinds of cash to pay for your projects. But in Wisconsin, that's just not the way it is with levy limits. So we kind of have to find a way to keep our operating levy limit paying for operating and then pay for our projects with debt, because that's what allows you to keep your services in place without having to mess.
You have to plan your projects based on the available debt space, I guess, each year.
Yeah, yep.
And what the state did about 3 years ago really tightened it up with the tax limitations you have now.
Just as a side note, we've gone down 4 out of the last 5 years. Now, granted, not much, but at least we're not going up anymore.
Right.
We want to slowly start going down.
But to a point, we need to fix the
Yeah,
low point.
well,
Where
we
is
got the
the
big-
comfortable point?
2025, 26 post bypass. We're going to have a lot of money to spend. We have to spend downtown and all that good stuff. There's a lot of projects we want to get done between now and then. Plus, once we get there, we'll have the money to pay for that stuff downtown, and the taxpayers will see their taxes going down every year. Yeah, you can give it all back right now, but then you're going to have to go back in a couple of years.
Ask for more.
And that seems to make everybody madder than.
And I think one thing else that you should kind of focus on here is you can see that with the way I've structured the debt payments, they're really front loaded. You actually have the ability, if you really have streets that need to be done, you could do more in projects and we could still structure this to have that same effect. It's just that, you know, because we had so much room to bring that levy down 25,000, I could still push a whole bunch of principal at the beginning, and then you really had really short repayments. So I think the one thing that you need to make sure is, does your capital improvement plan cover really what you have for needs? And if you've got a lot of roads that need redoing, and I don't know that if that's the case in Hortonville, but you know, you could handle a lot more in project costs and still have a pretty stable rate. So,
I want to
you
temper
know,
that a little bit.
you're in pretty good shape as far as your debt and your ability to pay for projects. I think that's the biggest key that I want to say to you.
Hey,
You're
David.
healthy with that.
Hey, David, this is Carl. The problem with these streets, if we got bad roads, we have bad utilities under it. So we have to fix the utilities first and then worry about the road second. So we have to temper this with how much the utility can afford to do and still get that 2% or whatever.
Yep.
The scheduling of that CIP project is kind of working not only with need, but also with the budgetary constraints to maintain that.
Yeah, the utility has to work with the village, and the village has to work with utility, and we all want to see taxes slowly go down too.
Right. You want to coordinate your projects, or else it ends up being a waste of money on certain things that are put in. Okay. Do you want me to move on to option 2?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, well, actually, this is kind of a look at the end result of the last option that I presented to you. It shows you that your tax levy for debt service is going down smoothly, and your tax rate is going down smoothly as well. So, you know, if you were in a position where you wanted to maintain that certain tax rate that we talked about, we would want this graph to look flat. So right now, we haven't determined what that bottom number is. But once we get to a point where you've made a policy of, this is where we want to stay, then we could probably structure it so that you have basically a flat tax rate or tax levy dollar graph, and that would be how this graph should look in that case. Okay? Make sense?
Yep.
Okay. And then, not that this is even a concern for you, but I did want to put in the debt limit. The blue is the statutory amount that you can borrow as the Village of Hortonville. That is 5% of your equalized value or the taxable property within the village limits. The red, in this case, is the 75% line, which is a line we tell our clients we would rather you never came close to that, because that 25% above that should be used for emergency purposes. And then the green is where your current outstanding debt is, so you can see you're way below that. Then I did a 50% graph, which is that's a policy I see at quite a few places. That's what it was at the place I worked, and you're even below that. So you're like I said, you're very healthy as far as what you look like for a debt profile right now. So option 2. Same thing, we're going to borrow for projects every 2 years. Staff wanted to use a number of $400,000 of projects a year. We are going to use the debt service fund cash to refund just the 2014 state trust fund loan, the 17 bank note, and the 20 bank note. And we would do those as, basically, if you were ready to go, we have the money to probably have staff go take care of that. The remaining amount, though, that was left over is about $975,000 then. And what we thought is a possible thing you could do is instead of refunding, applying that money towards that debt issue in 2022 when it's callable, that you could hold that money aside for future projects, whether it's downtown or something else. It's something that you could potentially do. Now, I think when we talked with staff about their feelings on this, basically you have 2 years from now to figure out whether you want to apply that to that 2013 issue, or if you want to hold that money for like a downtown project or something like that. So you actually have 2 years, which is awesome, to think about what do we want to do with it. You can plan for it, and maybe you can come up with some things that you could use that money for. You could hold that money and advance it over to the TIF district until the TIF district has maybe some increment to pay it back, although downtown TIF districts don't usually do super good at generating a lot of value fast. So, you may end up having a loan to them for quite a while. And once it did pay back, you could probably use that $975,000 then for, things outside the TIF district or other projects. So it gives you a lot of flexibility. You have 2 years to really think about what you want to do with that money. Okay. So then, same thing. We did that on. We did the runs on a competitive basis at this point, and we talked about that on the last issue. That's the same. So in this case, same thing as far as the years that we're doing them. The only thing that dropped off is that 2022 repayment of the 2013 debt. So everything else is basically the same. So on this schedule then, you can see our existing debt on the left side. That 2013 bond is still out there. We'll continue to pay that one until it's retired in 2033. We structured debt for the 3 borrowings that cover 6 years of project. They're a little bit more spread out as far as how we're paying them down, but we're trying to still get a similar tax rate over here because we're still structuring the debt to hit in such a way that we're coming down $25,000 a year. So basically, you could do it either way, and we can help you structure your debt in a way that you can still get that $25,000 tax relief each year. So it's just kind of a matter of how you want to use that existing money. You've got 2 years really to think about it, no matter which option you look at. Do you have questions on this one? going?
Yeah.
Okay. So in this one, what we have is the tax rate, and really, you know, the payments are going out there. We have a drop in the new debt out there in 2027, but I would assume that you would probably borrow in 2026 to do another 800,000. So probably, if that were in there, you would have a straight line, you know, coming down as well. That's just the factor that we had to extend those payments out a little bit more, and it just drops off for that new payment on that year. But if we continue to do that borrowing every 2 years, you would come to basically a flat line like we talked about before. And then the debt policy, really it looks the same. There's a little bit of difference because that 13 issue stays out there longer, but really you're still in pretty good shape. Do you want to ask questions before I go through the summary? You want me to just go through the summary quick and then we can do questions?
Why don't you go through the summary?
Okay, so just to wrap things up, you know, right now we have about $1.5 million in the debt service fund that does not, doesn't have a purpose. In today's world, there's a lot of municipalities that will kind of use that excess capacity. In the years where we levied for the full debt payments and still got money over from the TIP, there are municipalities that bank on some of that already funded debt to pay for one-time things. So, you know, it's weird for it to accumulate like this, but it isn't abnormal for municipalities to tax for things that already have a funding source so they can pay for one-time things. So basically you have $1.5 million that you can use for debt payments, you can use for capital projects, you could use it for a one-time general fund item like a reval if you wanted to. But that's how you could use that money. And really a debt service fund typically doesn't have a fund balance at all. Typically you tax for what you need, you get in money from the TIP district for their share. If you're levying special assessments, then you're probably applying some of those to reduce how much you're levying. So typically you're right around zero. You have 2 or 3 options basically as I went through them where you could use the money to refund existing debt, whether you only refund the 3 notes that you can take care of now, or if you refund that bond that is callable in 2022. Or you could also use it, you know, if you didn't do that you could use it instead of refunding anything, you could use it for future projects really. This tool that you have in front of you is something that you could use to do what-if analysis. You would be able to say, okay, what if we decided to do this major street project in this year? What does that do to our debt limit? What does that do to our tax rate? And we'd be able to kind of show you the impact of those kind of things. The main thing would be to help you establish a stable debt rate so that you don't have those peaks and valleys in the levy. And then, like I said, the debt limit is really not a big concern. You guys have a lot of room there. You know, as long as you're careful on how you use debt, there really isn't a reason why the debt limit should be a problem for the village. And I think that's the last page. So I'm happy to try to explain things better. I'm happy to answer any questions. Whatever you would like me to do, I'm available.
Hey David, can I ask you to go back to that graph for the debt on option 2? No, the other graph. That one. Now you said something about taking an additional loan out once we get to where we get that line flat on the bottom.
Well, this drop off here is because, you know, the graph goes out to a point where we would take out a new debt for 800,000, and that would fill in this gap.
What year is it? I just can't see that from here.
2026.
Right, so that would be a great time to do like a senior center and still not raise taxes.
Exactly.
Okay. realistically, we can't afford the senior center right now, but we
Right.
could do it in a few years and not affect taxes too much. All right, that's all I had there.
Well, and the other thing is, like I said, I mean, you know, you have really fast payback on your debt. If you did a project like the senior center, we would probably do, you know, you probably want to take out a borrowing, depending on how much that building is. That probably is more like a 20-year debt, because it's going to have a useful life that's a lot longer than the 3 years we're paying off these debts right now. So you'd be able to structure it in such a way that it would fit.
About $800. Yeah. Well, then it's possible you could do it a little earlier if you maintain this capital program an option to.
Well, and like I said, if you have projects you want me to model out, I'd be happy to add, you know, to do another run of something if you want to. Because we would still, the end goal would be to stabilize the tax rate and you know, try to get some, you know, if you still wanted to have tax relief, we could still work that in. It's just a matter of how long you take the issue out for.
What do you think about that, Janie? Should he look at that and include a 20-year along with the 400,000?
It would be interesting to see how it affected if you did it at like 2024 versus 2026. You know, what is the impact annually for that item at 20 years?
It might reduce our capital program, but it is a capital project.
Right.
We want to still maintain a, you know, steady downhill, but can we get a 20-year payment in there and deduct that off of the 400 capital?
Right.
Yeah.
Can you do that, David?
Absolutely. And that's what, you know, that's what this tool can be used for is, you know, we've got this thing out there in the future. What's it going to do to us? You know, because we could do it a couple different ways where we can structure it to make it fit so your tax rate looks good, and we can do that when we actually borrow. But the other thing you might want to know is how much is this going to cost the taxpayer on an annual basis? And in that case, we'd probably run like a level principal and interest, so we could tell you each year is going to be 25 cents per thousand or something like that. So we'd be able to give you a couple different pieces of information with that.
You have to think about it, right? So if it's a 20-year deal, right? So now you're having a small impact per year, but it's going to last a very long time.
But a lot of our big stuff is up front. So if David could work that into the 4th year cycle or the 5th year, which would be 24, I think. Yeah.
Do we want to do it that year?
I think the earlier the better. I mean, people are clamoring.
You're also looking at bypass. I think.
Yeah, but I
think the bypass needs to take precedent over a potential senior center because we get one chance at doing this bypass with some matching funds.
Well, what the thing is we're still going to have that money.
And just so you know, when you do capital plans, a lot of times places will put the whole farm in there and see how it fits, and then maneuver pieces around to see where they fit them.
I mean, we'll still have $1 million in the bank, he said. We'll have, put it in there for 5 years and see how it goes. I'm not telling
Carl,
it should be, the board should be deciding.
Why don't you do this for me, Carl? When you decide what you want to see, you just email me what scenarios you want, and I can definitely run those.
It would be nice to see how it plays out at a 2024 entry, and see, you know, okay, what is the effect on this many years, 20 years, what have you? Because like I said, I mean, this smaller impact in 20 years, but it just makes that line last forever on the bottom.
Yeah, we're not going to be putting pavilions in parks every year for the next 20 years.
Exactly.
So we'll be able to absorb some of this.
Right.
Stuff.
It just means that you change your CIP plan each year following.
The only thing would be we won't know what the interest rates will be.
Yeah.
True.
You're guessing.
Right.
So that's the scary thing.
Do we have some pretty big things though? Like I look at your 750,000 for the effluent filtration system at the wastewater treatment plant. So, I mean,
that's not part of the village tax base.
Right.
It isn't, okay? I just want to make sure because it's considered a capital improvement, but it's not on 2021,
But it's for
22, or 23.
Water and sewer is separate, it's all utilities.
Yeah.
I'm not budgeting that until I'm working with.
That's a different funding source.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we're not dropping some of these bigger ones off.
No, that is kind of built into the rate structure now. That believe it or not, 2% of what is a lot compared to 5% of a little. So I know he said we only make 2%, but that's a lot of money. So, and we've got some debt coming off the utility.
Okay.
where we're gonna apply
The other
it.
thing that, just to kind of reiterate is we, like I said, we used a really conservative growth rate. And so if the village does better, these tax rates will come down faster.
And we also need to come up with a number for our tax rate goal,
Right.
because that's gonna determine how much cash is available as well, because if we say, okay, we wanna stay at around 2, okay, depending on how much spend and debt we have, that 2 means more or less to us on an
Yeah.
annual basis.
Well, I think you have to do two things. You're talking about the property tax rate, right?
Right.
So I think to do that, you need to look at two other factors. One is the property tax rate per thousand going backwards, like the last decade or so,
Yeah.
right? I mean, because
Yeah.
our tax rate has gone up.
It, not necessarily.
Yeah, I pay the
In
taxes here. I know the
26
tax rate has gone up.
In 2016, there was a large increase at a time.
For the water.
Yeah, my taxes are close to
Right.
double
But it's
what
not
they
just
were
the
when
village,
we
you got the
got
county
Yeah,
also.
the
School,
it-
the county,
Yes,
Right.
I
we have a
understand
lot
that.
of other things
And it
that
also
are,
Yes.
that are
I-
into your tax
I
bill.
I understand that, but nobody
Yeah.
in the city sees that. And-
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
if
the
they see us
municipal
spending
We
money.
can't go
level
down
is
because the
just
school
our-
goes up.
our-
World
Yeah.
lower.
Yeah,
Yeah.
our tax
So,
level,
the other thing
is
that we
good.
need to take into account before we can figure out where we want our base level tax rate to be
Right.
is what our neighboring communities are at. Because that's one of the things that Hortonville really gets dinged on, is that to live in Hortonville, it costs you a
They're
whole lot
actually
more than
not
it does
far
to live
behind.
a
And you
quarter of
gotta
a
be-
mile down the road.
You gotta be careful comparing apples and oranges. They're not that far
Yeah.
behind, and they don't have police, and they're
Yeah.
paying more, and they're gonna be paying
Yep.
for all this stuff.
I understand
If
that.
you wanna be like them, all I can say is you might wanna just move there. I'm not telling you, but
Yeah,
apples and oranges, just like the
And
utility.
you'll definitely want to use the equalized tax rate, so you'll want to, whatever their rate is for like on their tax bill, to be comparable, at least on a dollar basis, you'd have to use the equalized value to come up with a tax rate to be comparable.
Yeah.
But Carl's right, if they have different services, that's
yeah,
how.
and that it makes sense. People are gonna, if you're gonna live in the town, you're gonna understand, people living in Greenville now, they're paying for that brand new fire station, everything else. They understand they're gonna pay more than if they live in, Ellington, right? But,
Right.
but if it's an enormous amount more and unreal, when you tip the scales, it gets a lot more attractive to live somewhere other than the place that's charging a lot of tax. That's why I say, in order to be able to come up with the rate that we want to stay at, those are the things we should look at before you
But
just.
that's for
It's not that far
different.
off, though.
I mean, the only thing we're really looking at tonight is what direction do you want to go for the next 2 years? I know we're looking at down the road as well, but really we only have, basically we need to know if we're gonna be going out for this revenue bond this year. And then basically, and if you wanna pay off the loans. That's
Yeah.
pretty much the only decisions that we can really make tonight that affect us over the next few years. Other than that, even in anything that we approve in the option wise, it's not necessarily this board's choice on option 1 or 2. It's the board in 2022's choice for that, if that makes sense. So the only really option we have right now is for you guys to decide on as a board. Do you want to go out for the bond for $800,000 for the next 2 years? And do you want to pay off the 3 loans that were listed? That's really what we're looking at tonight.
But we don't think that the senior center changes or affects that decision, because I do.
Yeah,
It will
But
in 2
even
cycles.
if
and so does our long-term.
Right,
Even if you
but
plan
that,
for it,
but
it
if we're
doesn't-
going for this plan,
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
whether we're here for that next cycle or not, we're kind of moving down a path, right? We're choosing a path. So
No.
Right.
to me, I'm not comfortable answering that until I see the effects of that senior center and how it affects these graphs.
Okay, but even if you guys approve that, there's not anything saying that another board.
I
couldn't.
understand, but
Yeah.
that changes the path of
Yeah.
The next
these 2
2 years.
graphs
Okay,
drastically. So I'm not
Right.
going to make a decision as a board member tonight to say we should pick path A or path B without that
We-
knowledge, regardless of what board 2024 is going to do or 2022.
I'll get that information to David, and David can update this option 2 and get that back to the board.
I think it affects it. I mean, it does
Well,
for me.
yeah.
I don't know about the rest of the board members, but to me, that affects my decision on how I think whether we should pay off debt now or move forward with this kind of standard 860,000 every 2-year plan.
How does that affect your timetable,
Well, we need to-
budget-wise and stuff?
We need to be able to go out for a bond by the end of the year and
Okay.
process that, so that would be the only thing.
Does 2 weeks change that?
Potentially, yes, because it closes our timeline for how long we gotta let the bond sit out there. I mean, David, you know more about going out for the bonds than anyone.
Well, here's probably the biggest decision you need to make about doing a note issue this fall, is that because that debt service payment is dropping by 300,000, if you don't approve that debt before you approve your budget, you can't call it general obligation debt, so it can't legally be put into your budget. So you have to do the borrowing, or we're pretty close to doing the borrowing, to be able to put it into your budget as an approved general obligation debt. So that's probably the biggest thing with that first borrowing. And you could do just a 1-year borrowing, and we could structure in what did we say that first year would have to be? You'd almost be able to pay the whole thing off the first year, but it'd give you a little bit of time. I mean, if we did a $400,000 borrowing to get us buy us a year and get that done before you approve your budget, basically it would keep that debt service rate up there, and we could put a little bit into the next year, but that way it kind of buys you a little bit more time to make the decision on the rest of it, because I think it is important. If you want $300,000 to drop off, you're going to have to come back from that at some point then, probably. Does that make sense?
Dave, from a timing perspective, what considerations does the board have in terms of borrowing this year? What does that look like in terms of timing?
Well, I think, probably if we were to do a 1-year borrowing, just do the 2021 project, you could probably go to the bank really fast. I think it's probably, if we were doing that, we're probably almost doing a 1-year borrowing at this point, because you could probably pay it off a year from then as a long-term debt, and, basically your debt service tax rate, would still drop that 25,000. We may not be able to pay the whole 400,000 off in 2021, but a little piece might bounce into 2022. So I think the bank would probably go for it, though.
So we're just looking at borrowing money so that way we can maintain the current tax rate?
Well, and that, so we can start giving people what they pay taxes for, and that's amenities.
It makes you plan, it helps you plan what you're buying, what you're spending based on.
Basically, it allows you to do things in the village we haven't been able to do over the last 20 years, whether it's maintaining our parks. But it's it's slowly gonna lower your tax rate. It's not gonna increase it. The issue is if we let it decrease, then we have projects in 2025, let's say, that we have to go out then for a loan at that point. Then you're gonna have to get money to go back up. So you're gonna have to go up for another bond, and depending on how much it is, we might need to go for a,
So my thought is, if you don't want to make the decision on paying off those loans, which you could do after you have a little more time to actually digest it all, is you could just borrow for the 21 project. So that way you're hanging on to the cash until you're sure you want to pay them off, and you have the debt service tax rate at least not dropping way off. You were kind of maintaining that stable, and then you can figure out where you want to go.
Me personally, I find option number 2 to be more appealing. It seems more stable, it seems more fixed, it seems easier to plan if it's a fixed amount that you're getting every 2 years. It seems to be less risky to me and easier to manage. It also looks like the estimated tax rate actually goes down lower by the 2027, and the rest of the years seem to be sort of matching, other than a couple. So, I mean, if my opinion would be option 2, I guess, if I was going, but that also the 860 standard sort of limits you, right, at the same time, a little bit.
I would recommend at least 3 years. Now, CIP goes out 5, utility projects are figured out for the next 9 years. Yeah, if we, let's say we do what Jim wants and just cut it on, I'm not what Jim wants, but let's just say we drop the taxes, don't take out this loan and don't do any projects. Yeah, we can lower rates, but we're gonna go back to being the old way, not having anything for people, and they're gonna want to.
Well, I didn't say don't do any projects, I'm just, I just don't understand, we're gonna take out a loan, so when the last explanation I got is, we're gonna take out a loan now, because if we don't take out a loan now, we're gonna have to take out a loan later. And that's circular.
Well, it's cyclical then, because
Yeah.
if we don't, it's not interdependent, but we can keep our projects going, like we got 2025 post bypass coming up. Probably $1.5 million we'll need then. Granted, we're not gonna pay for it with $400,000 a year, but we can keep our taxes going down till then and still have that money in the bank. And by the time we get there, we'll have most of our bigger CIP stuff done. We can devote $400,000 to downtown. We've got $1 million in the bank. Our taxes have been dropping. And our taxes have went down, Jim, for the last 5 years. I don't know about your house.
Yeah.
Hortonville taxes have gone down.
Yeah, a little bit, but yeah,
I can't speak for the school.
They spiked.
They
Quite a
did
bit.
spike in that one.
And the tech one.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, you needed the fire
Quite a
truck.
bit.
Yeah, we can't help that. So,
James, do you have any input on this?
Do I have any input?
So I'm just having trouble getting,
No, it's fine. It's
getting
all-
past the, okay, getting past the idea, we have 1.5 million sitting in the bank that we shouldn't have any, right? Because our debt service amount should be zero, right? We have $1.5 million that was supposed to be spent on stuff, right? And we didn't spend it on it, that's how it accumulated.
Yes.
Now we're trying to figure out, well, let's go borrow some money so that way, because if we don't borrow some now, then we won't be able to borrow some later, and when we have $1.5 million in the bank.
That's not what it's saying.
That's what I'm getting out of this.
No, there's a couple things, right? So if you borrow now, one, the rates are really low.
Yes.
Okay, so that's a bonus.
Yeah, I got it.
The thing is, we know we have spend going, we have a plan, we have a project plan, we know we have spend coming. So we're really just creating this money that we're getting that does two things. One, we ensure we have the money for all the projects we know are coming. And two, we're making it so that the tax rate doesn't go like this based on what we need, right? So you have to maintain both. So it's not that we're just taking out money even though we have 1.5 million sitting in the bank. That's not the goal. We have spend that we can put that money towards. It's how are we going to continue to fund the future projects? This is a long-term look. How are we going to continue to fund those future projects while maintaining the tax increments? Because if we don't plan for not just this year, next year, and the year after, we're going to end up going to the public and saying, guess what? We don't have that 1.5 million anymore, and we need to increase what you pay us so that we can cover these planned projects.
I get.
And a lot of this is gonna help the future boards who are gonna make a lot of the decisions. It's gonna put them in a much better place.
Right. They're not always gonna be behind the 8 ball. They're gonna have.
They're gonna be, without it, they're gonna either be high in taxes or low in taxes.
I mean, to me, option 2 seems the most easy to plan, but it also provides, in my opinion, the most limitations, because now you have a fixed dollar amount that you're working within each increment.
I know, it's at 1.5 sitting out there, it bothers Jim, it kind of bothers.
It bothers me
that
that we have money that we accumulated that shouldn't have been accumulated, and now we're trying to figure out how we can, even on some of these, we're like, okay, well, 6 years down the road, we're still gonna have, almost $1 million left in here.
Yeah.
Out of money that we should, that's $500 a person from the village.
Yeah, we're gonna pay off debt with that money.
Okay.
And we're gonna stick $900,000 in the bank, which we're gonna need in 2025. Now, or you could use that money now and not do any project, or save that money for 2025.
Yeah.
Then you're not gonna have anything done in between time.
Oh, I mean, I understand the idea of taking this I understand the idea of taking this money and finding projects that it should be applied to. I mean, we discussed the specialized concrete, for downtown, that's an expense over and above what the state's gonna do. I mean, I can understand that. We found this $1.5 million, and Ehlers here is trying to help us figure out how to deal with this, but I'm just not seeing a
if we didn't
solution.
pay down that debt, we still have to pay the debt. You know what I mean?
We have existing debt.
It's either pay me now or pay me later. we're better off paying down that debt, keeping our debt, or new debt, until we get to 2025, and then we're set for doing all that work then without raising taxes. You gotta think about 5 years from now too. Do you really want these people to get a big tax increase in 2025?
No, I don't.
That's
And
what'll
then you're
happen
gonna have
if
a
you
ton of
start-
projects done in between now and then. Plus their taxes, at least on the village side, or like they have been for the last 5 years, going down every year.
The goal here isn't to continue to add to the 1.5, it's to use it to spread it and sort of feather it out so that we wouldn't have these spikes, highs and lows of the tax
Yeah.
base going
We
forward.
pay off some debt, plus it's a
It's
buffer
a
for
combination,
2025.
yes.
So we can continue our slide down with taxes, so we can be there with the green bills and
Okay.
all them people.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, we could give you this next year, massive decrease, but then next year you're gonna get an increase to, which will,
See,
Feather
that
itself out.
doesn't make sense to me, because we weren't supposed to have this money in the first place. So why would anything that we do with this money turn into an increase in your tax? That's why I asked the question. I said, we don't take out a loan, then we have to lower the tax rate, right? That's how that works? Because we won't have any debt that we have to, because we have to have a certain amount of debt to be able to put that in to say, okay, we
Well, our debt
can
would
tax
drop
you
to
for this.
300 and something thousand from 600 that we levy for. So you'd have a $300,000 estimated drop off next year.
Yeah.
Yes, you could do it that way, and you could save the 1.5 million. That would satisfy our capital plan for the next 4 years, right, or so. But the issue is, after that, it's really hamstringing the village 10, 20 years from now, where you could have a debt tax rate at a certain level
and maintain it.
and maintain it, where it slowly drops now until you hit that portion, and then the village will have potentially a few $100,000 for capital projects for the next 25 years if we do it correctly.
Some of those things that got deferred can get
Right.
moved up. Done.
Really, that 1.5 million, to me, it seems like we're just metering that out instead of borrowing so much more. We're gonna meter that out to pay for our expenses over a number of years and then borrow less. So it's, now that we know we have it, we may as well use it to our best advantage.
You mentioned earlier too, it's a possibility that we have to go to referendum.
Well, if you have a certain increase,
I mean, if you're looking at doing the downtown,
right,
that's gonna be a big expenditure.
so you can only go up by our levy limit. So you would probably have to go out for a referendum, I would think, if you did it downtown, so that the taxpayer would know that their taxes are gonna increase. And depending on the economy, that might be very hard, too. So it's,
And then that's our one shot for that
Right.
one. I mean, it's one
right,
and done.
so it's better to kind of at least
Probably at a higher
prepare
rate.
ourselves for downtown by doing it this way, to slowly lower it. And, you know, if you don't like the next few years, you can always vote to not continue doing the borrowing.
Or reduce it somewhat.
Right.
You probably could reduce it somewhat in the future, because you won't have as many of the high dollar projects.
Well, depending.
Depending.
I mean, it depends on what comes up. I mean, you can't predict
Yeah.
Right.
what's gonna happen, but
Jim's right, that 1.5 kind of sticks in his craw, sticks in mine too, like, it just can't, why, I understand, don't worry.
at this point, we need to stop worrying about how it got there
Right.
necessarily, and just how are we going to deal with it and how to best utilize it to maintain what we need to do, what'll be the best long-term solution for the people of the village versus a one-time give.
Yeah.
Would you rather get, you know, $20 off your bill every month, or would you just want $200?
No, I'm just trying to make sure that, so if I go downtown next week and I say, yeah, we have 1.5 million that we collected and as the village, and we were supposed to do stuff with it, and we didn't, we just used your tax dollars to do that. We just kept piling on this money, the special assessments and everything else. You know, the special assessment people will be really happy about that. And we say, we just kept collecting it. Now, if I went to them and
It's
said,
not that we didn't spend it, we just didn't move it to the right account. That would be our fund balance.
yes,
Basically.
okay.
So it would just be in our savings, it just was left in our,
A holding account.
correct?
Well,
I think it's important we pay down some of that debt,
yeah,
like you said.
but my understanding is that because of where it's at, we can only use it, what I've gotten so far is we can only use it for certain things, right?
Right.
Okay, so a better explanation for me, which is what I'm trying to understand here, is that, you know, because the Joe on the street is gonna say that's $500 a person in the entire village. I mean, that's ridiculous that you guys,
Going back
you know,
20 years,
looking at us saying that's ridiculous, you guys got that money and didn't use it, you overtaxed us in their opinion. So, but if I understand this enough and I can get it and say, yeah, I agree with this, I could go down and I could say, look, you know, we have this money. What we're gonna do is we're gonna pay down some stuff. We're gonna have some projects. We're slowly gonna make it smaller. At the same time, lowering your tax rate, and use that money to pay off stuff so we don't have to tax you more later.
That's exactly.
Right?
That's
That
That's
I got,
exactly what
but
you
I
said.
don't get that out of this. That's the thing, is I'm not getting
There's a lot of
that
numbers.
explanation out of
Yeah.
these.
That's exactly the
That's
explanation.
exactly right.
Okay,
That's exactly right.
okay. I just don't get it out of the presentation that we have here,
Maybe
because I don't follow
stabilize
that.
the tax rate would be another thing to
Yeah.
say. right?
Reducing till we stabilize, yeah.
Jane, you didn't get I think Dan asked you if you wanted to add anything.
No, I just wanna know what the board's recommendation is, if there's debt that we wanna be paying off, and go, you know, how we wanna proceed. When we found out about this, we needed Dave's expertise to tell us where do we go from here. Because the
Like I
debt
said,
service fund should be zero.
we want to start wrapping up this budget next month, kind of.
Right.
And, the CIP would be nice, if we're gonna do a one-year CIP, I mean, that's just a waste of time. We should at least fund 2 years, I'm not saying anything, but we know it's a 5-year CIP, the other guys would like to see a 10-year plan. We need at least to know what we're doing for 2 years, so, and kind of how we're gonna fund it.
I mean, you can allow him to go out and look for bonds for 2 years. You don't necessarily need to pass it when he comes back with the paperwork. Just saying, it's not, yes, you're technically passing him to look for it, but we don't necessarily have to accept it that night if you guys change your mind.
I like option 2. I would like to see it with the senior
The-
center put in,
right.
but I mean, I honestly don't know that it would change this all that much otherwise, other than adjusting what we can spend on the other months or other years. But I would, I mean, if it was me, the more stable option is option 2.
When would the senior center go in?
2024,
So Dave, what
25.
does the
year.
timeline
We
look
can't
like
decide
again?
For
with-
sure that the senior center's going
What do you-
in because of future board.
Yeah,
decisions.
yeah.
No,
for
but
the
I would like
chart
to see what the
purposes,
number does
yeah.
to this, right? I would just
Yeah.
like to see what the number does and
I mean,
how
I
the
pulled up
graph changes.
CIP from 2016 all the way through current date, and I mean, it's a very fluid, I think any of the department heads could tell you, I mean, yeah, I still saved 2016. And it's very fluid, so things change. What a 2016 board thought was great for capital improvement and was important is very different, so whatever
Sometimes
decision.
things fall on your lap, you know, Grandview, never had any idea we could actually swing Grandview,
Yeah,
or even Warren Street for that
it's in
matter.
here.
Yeah.
But I mean, we can look at a crystal ball all we want, but I guess I look at this and go, whatever option we choose, we're simply just setting another board up to be in a position to move forward on whatever they decide to do.
And lower
That,
taxes.
the best way to say, I mean, I honestly, while we're all discussing, I dug these out, and I'm sure I have more at home, but, I mean, I just kept looking at this going, gosh, you know, we can plan ahead and say, we're gonna do this, and I agree with Jim, you know, but I certainly don't want you to go around town and tell everybody that we aren't using, or we're not, you know, taking their money and not using it, because honestly, I think it just wasn't pulled from the right accounts or put in the right.
If it would've got moved into another account, then everybody, it would've been designated for future use.
Yeah, and the
Yeah,
tax
and we could use it
rates,
for anything, but the way that it sits now, we're
Yeah,
limited,
so-
we're restricted on what we can do
Yeah.
with it now.
and the municipal tax rate either stayed the same or went slightly down since I've been on the board. But the school district tax rate and other tax rates around us have gone up, but the municipal tax rate has either stayed the same or gone slightly down. It's like by like 0.0.
It's not a lot,
It's
but
not
at
a
least
lot,
they're going
but
down.
our
It
municipal
still
rates
goes
have
down.
not gone up, so.
Yeah.
My taxes on my house were, when I bought my house in Hortonville, the previous year, because everybody does that, looks at it, the taxes were $3,600. Within 3 years, my taxes were over $5,000.
Look at your different municipal versus your school district rates, absolutely.
Yeah, they went, I think they
Yeah.
topped out somewhere around $5,400 a year, from $3,600 in just a few years. It was
I think
ridiculous.
Fox Valley Tech went way up
Yep,
one year.
and that's
so-
why, and that's why we had a referendum, and heads up, there's another one coming for the school district for more expansion.
So,
There's your taxes.
Thanks, you know.
Yeah.
I vote
You
2.
should move over by me, they're really low.
Yeah,
so
well,
you like.
I mean,
That's
I like option 2
there are
because
houses
it's
that are
safe.
worth 4 times
I
as
like
much a
option
mile
2
away,
because it
and they pay
gives
half the
a
tax
fixed
rate, which
amount.
is crazy.
I like option 2 because it gives a fixed amount, it gives you the ability to plan, and it's a kind of a more stable, gradual, it's not so drastic. It doesn't give you any of the drop downs, but it still provides for a decrease in the tax rate, and actually, if you look at it, a lower ending point than option one.
And that was staff's.
Possibility.
Staff's.
The other thing about option two is it gives you that,
comfortable answering
you
that
get 2 years to
question?
make your decision on.
Yes, and that's the other point, it gives us 2 years to figure out how to use the
Right.
remaining cash.
And if we don't need it, we can always go to the option
Okay.
one.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
did-
you can
Right.
sort of backtrack to option one, but you can't really backtrack to option
Right.
two.
Okay, because I didn't know if that was putting staff in a bad spot to ask what option you preferred.
Oh,
Oh.
I
But
think
'cause
staff
I think
all
you-
agree option two was
Option
probably
two.
our
Okay.
Option two,
suggestion.
Then
we need to give Dave some direction here. Option two with the 800,000 for a senior center in year 5, spread out over 20 years. How that would affect the,
800,000 you said?
yeah.
Well, I don't think you should really say that yet.
Yeah,
Well, no, if we need
Well,
$800,000, we gotta
you
be
could
in the
just
bank. Of course, yeah.
I can give him a number
CIP
some other day.
Huh?
It's a CIP cost.
Yeah.
It's gonna
I
be
have to have a
every
number
year.
for the CIP, so I'm comfortable with
Yeah.
800. It's just,
I'm just saying, with
placeholder.
planning it, it's gonna be way higher.
Yeah, it's a placeholder, you don't know what the dollar amount is, so.
Well, and you'll have to adjust it that year anyway, so if
Right.
it comes in at more than
That's
8,
true.
then you just
Yep.
adjust and something else gets deferred or adjusted, that's just how it
Yeah,
works.
even in 3 months, things have gone up $10,000-$15,000.
Yeah, anything that's over a year long is gonna be more than what's in your plan probably anyway.
Right. And I think in the future, in 2021, we're gonna be doing this earlier in the year, so that it's not last minute like it was this year. And that's kinda why it feels rushed, and we're sorry about that, but it just kind of fell in our lap at those last minute here.
And option two doesn't really tie the next board if
Right.
there's not the same people to stay on this path. They could take that money and just
Give
pay
a
off the
break.
debt at
Right.
year 2 and be done.
Correct.
So if the
Yep.
staff supports 2 and you're good with numbers and you're seeing 2, do we need to wait? I mean, I'm just feeling for you guys doing the budget.
All we
If we
need
can
is to
make a
be able to
decision-
allow him to go out for revenue bonds
Okay, so
for that 800,000.
I hate to
Whether you accept
beleaguer
the
you.
amounts he brings back is a different story. So,
I
It
that's
feels like we
comfortable with
poured
him going
cement
out
on
for
our,
bond.
on our staff's feet. You know, I don't wanna stop them from doing something that we are
That-
inevitably gonna be doing in 2 weeks, but, yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's, if I'm hearing you correctly, is option I guess, are we comfortable going ahead with option 2, no matter what he finds out?
I suppose you'd call a vote, I don't know.
Okay.
do we need a motion, or do we just need a head
we
nod?
just need to direct him to go out for a
Direction.
bond for 800.
Right,
Oh,
so that's
so
all
that would
we're
be the
actually
motion.
deciding on tonight, we're not actually picking
Right.
an option.
Okay, I'm
Correct.
sorry.
So, do we need a motion to go ahead with this?
Yes,
And the 800,000 is
think-
for funding the CIP
for the next 2 years.
for the next 2 years.
21 and 22.
Go ahead, make your motion, Pat.
I move that we go ahead with the bond for $800,000 to fund the CIP for the next 2 years. Did I word that correctly?
Not to go out,
Pardon me?
Go out,
not to get the bond.
To
but
go out and seek.
go out and get
Okay.
options.
Proposal.
Proposals.
Yeah.
I second that.
Let's do a roll, Julie?
Aye.
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 Okay, motion carried. We will now move to,
David, are you
Do we
still
need-
there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, you'll update that graph then with the,
Can you just send me like the details in an email so I know what year and everything for sure too, so I have it documented?
okay, all right.
And then why don't you put in there that the board authorized us to seek bids, you know, whether it's bank bid or a negotiated bid, to see what the best deal is.
Okay,
Okay?
all right, thank you.
Anything else?
Thank you.
No, I think we're good.
Thank
you.
you.
Okay.
I wish my brain was-
Thanks a lot.
because My dad is an accountant, but my,
Goodbye. C, review of 2021 through 2025 capital improvement plan.
We've already beat this up pretty good, but I'm gonna hand out some stuff. show you why we need to, why we're doing what we're doing, I guess. I don't have a CIP, but I
handed out the CIP already.
Okay, you guys have the CIP. I want to show,
It was in the packet.
you have one.
I have
This is something MSA put up for year 2025, you know, post bypass. Some of the things that we want to get accomplished. You know, there's a photo in the back of a downtown, I forget which town it is. But it's something that actually was going to be around for because it's got mountable curbs. We're going to expand the parking, push the road in. We'll be able to have car shows and Oktoberfest and all that good stuff downtown. But anywho, downtown's gonna be an immense amount of money. Once, if we go from Quick Trip or whatever, Gilbert's all the way through downtown, past Miller Park, updating everything. We can probably turn some lights on though. And you have the CIP, like Julie said, the CIP is very dynamic.
It changed.
Basically,
It was in your packet.
it was, it's changed since you've been emailed the packet. It's 90% public works. I mean, I'm not gonna deny it. That's where the big money is. You know, there's squad cars and stuff like that in there, but what people want to see, what taxpayers want to see, they want to see their taxes going down, but they also want to see something for their money. We've got a chance now. Yeah, we can drop taxes and not do anything, but people have seen that for the last 100 years in Hortonville.
It'll cost you more later on.
Yeah. Or the village can come up and pay for their share of these road projects. Utility does utilities in the road. The village never has any money to fix up the storm sewers or help on the paving. Well, with the CIP program, the village can pony up and help the utility out. We can do stuff in the parks. I mean, you've seen a taste of it. You know, when David was here, we finagled a way to get these boat docks. And, you know, of course we do some out of the bank, but these boat launches and boat docks, they're big things. They look nice. I don't know if anybody's seen them. Beautiful, permanent. It's about time we did something for the taxpayers and they got some bang for their buck. The CIP is all full of bang for their bucks. I don't know if you've seen it, but
I think
it's about time that we actually did something for the people. Instead of just, you know, everybody driving around on bad roads, you know, having the same old, same old. We can continue to lower taxes a little bit every year. Again, we can't control Fox Valley Tech, we can't control the school district, we can't control the county. But as long as Hortonville taxes are going down a little bit every year, that's about all we can do. I mean, we could lower them to zero in the county and everybody else is still gonna go up, so it won't do us any good to shoot ourselves in the foot. So let's do something for our people for once. Anyways, if you got any questions, I'm gonna pass this around. I know Peter's not here, but one of the biggies is Miller Park next year. It's a gem. It's an undeveloped treasure. We got big plans for gazebos, improving the parking lots. We need another gazebo down there for rentals and stuff like that. And, the splash pads, we gotta update the ball, tennis courts are junk. There's been requests for basketball. There's just so much we can do down there that we can now afford to do it and get it out there for the taxpayer. I don't.
Parking is a big one.
Parking
That's
is
a big
one.
gain
Yeah.
down there.
Right.
Anyway, if you look at 2021, you know, is this the newest one?
Yeah, they both are.
We'll just look at 2021. I'm not looking for permission tonight for it, but we've got, you know.
If there's issues, we need to kind of address some of those so we can change it.
Okay, what is that again?
Any issues with
Oh,
any
if
of
there's
these
any
projects
Yeah.
that are in there?
What is a rain garden?
Yeah, I was kind of wondering.
It's like is out here.
It's to mitigate,
It's just like rocks to
runoff.
sort the runoff?
yeah.
Is that what it
well,
is?
So you have to kind of design it so that the runoff is, so you kind of dig.
Focused.
Right.
Okay,
It's a
certain type of planting in the ground to allow the water
so it's
to
really just a
sink
visual
down.
thing, less of a, it's not something that people will participate on, let's call
No,
it that. It's not a
basically,
splash
it's
pad.
basically a retention pond
Okay,
where bioorganisms are eating the antifreeze and oil out of the cars that come off the parking lot.
Miller Park is close to the groundwater table. The DNR preferred instead of a pond there because the pond would fill up. So they preferred a rain garden to kind of filter the water as it comes off these parking lots.
okay.
And the type of plants you plant.
That's fine, I've just never heard it called a rain, I've never heard of it.
It's like the one right out
I mean,
Okay.
And won't it run off into the creek there anyway?
It will, but it'll run through the plants and the plants will absorb any nutrients or,
The aquifers and, yeah.
The roots go really
It's a
deep.
filtration system.
Right.
yeah,
At the end of the day, it's a filtration system.
yeah, just an organic
Okay.
filtration system. Again,
It's
here's my
beautiful.
drawing. You know, we've got some designs for boardwalks and trails, you know, bringing the trail in is gonna be high dollar. Making improvements downtown, making improvements in Miller Park. If we can knock some of that stuff off the list prior to 2025, which the CIP will allow us to do, it'll make it a lot easier. I think the goal is to never go back to the taxpayer and say we want a referendum to spend money. We don't want to do that anymore. Either the utility or the.
So the second page of this, when I see like a skate park and that sort of thing, is that, directly related to item E? Did we get the results?
Yes, yeah.
So that, I'm
No,
assuming,
it's not necessarily.
It's not, no, this was done before that.
This was something designed in 2019. I don't think these
Okay.
are really the plans in this area as much anymore.
okay.
We contracted
Oh,
with
I see it
MSA
now.
to get a
I
second
see it
grant.
now, thank you.
Clintonville ended up getting that grant, like $1 million. We didn't get anything.
Okay,
So anyways, this was part of our grant application process. And one thing I wanted to focus on was again downtown. That's the treasure too. Once we get that bypass done, then we can go out there and throw some barricades up and have a hoe down, do all kinds of stuff downtown.
are any of the expenses on this downtown
You gonna come in?
Main
Yeah, I'll come
Street?
back to that.
Are any of the expenses like downtown Main Street, is that gonna be accessible to those business owners?
I would
don't think we
recommend
would
against it,
want to.
because this is something for the community. It's not just for the downtown.
I just wanna make sure that we're being open and honest with those business owners.
I can't tell you what the future board is gonna decide.
Yeah.
But the goal would be to mitigate all of that, because the goal would actually be to give, so in part of the plan is to give a facade loan up to a certain amount that you could give out to those businesses to update their facades to match a theme of downtown, is kind of already written in that, I
Downtown
think in the
zoning
capital
code,
plan.
yeah.
That's what I've heard.
Yep.
So that would be kind of more of a goal if they were gonna spend money, was to update their fronts.
Yeah,
their
if you make it
storefronts.
possibly forgivable, if you have enough
Yeah.
money.
I just wanna make sure that, like, if anybody's looking at coming
Right.
downtown or whatever, that our future plan is, because it's a blight district at this point.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, we can take care of from building to building, but we also need a funding mechanism to motivate these people to fix up the front of their buildings.
Okay.
Uh,
For the most part.
Yeah, it can look nice.
A lot of them
It's
have.
gonna look really nice.
Yeah,
It's gonna be expensive,
it's not part of the downtown zone.
because it does, you know, what you don't see is Pine Street, and, you know, all the sidewalk, any broken sidewalk going all the way out to Gilbert's and, you know, this is gonna be a bedroom community. We're never gonna be big industry or have all that stuff here. Once we have the bypass, it's gonna quiet down a little bit. It'll be nice if people on Main Street start fixing up their homes again.
Well, that's kind of the other issue,
Hey.
is it helps bring,
Hey, people on Main Street are fixing up their own.
Wow.
You
Yeah,
wanna
some
know how
people.
much I
Especially that
spent?
red house in
Yeah, that
the
red one.
corner, I mean,
I
I don't know.
Yeah, we need
Getting
color.
to 90,000 of renovations, yeah.
Take her corn crib.
It's cemented in, you
Move it over
can't.
to Miller Park.
You can tell the year this was done though, with all the cars in that
Mhm.
lot there. across
Well,
from
that's
the
not
bowling alley.
Hortonville. I don't know
no,
where that's at.
she's talking about right here.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
hilarious.
Oh,
Tom Oak's
yeah.
property.
All Tom Oak's property is covered in cars.
Yeah.
I assume that skate park is probably not actually
No,
on the
it,
plan.
don't go back. I mean, we've got, I shouldn't say, but that's one of the reasons. If the budget goes through, we'll probably have public facilities or even a Cal just to get on the same page regarding what we're gonna do in Miller.
Yeah.
Cause I have my ideas, Peter has his, but we want a consensus.
Well, I'm looking at Alonzo.
Oh.
Yeah,
You got a skate park
This
in
is
that,
from
in that
2019,
frontage
so-
road, that frontage
Yeah,
property.
skate parks, I'm not a
New
big fan.
public works
I'm
director
not-
from that, maybe, might wanna do something.
Not a big fan of skate parks, but,
My kids would love one, but.
yeah.
but
But we
that's
can
bad.
do one at Miller Park if we wanted one.
Yeah, that's a bad spot.
The dog park maybe, but I worry about blastomycosis down there because it's kind of
Yes.
wet.
Very much. So now the sidewalks like downtown, one of the things that this gentleman mentioned earlier when we were talking about the administrator, that I read in there, like wider sidewalks to, and even changing some ordinances to allow dining on like Main Street
Right.
type of thing. Are those sidewalks wide enough for that? I mean, are we planning for that?
No, we're gonna narrow out the road to 12-foot lanes.
But will it be able to accommodate that with this?
Like if somebody wanted to have outdoor seating on the sidewalk,
Yeah, strohs
Yeah,
or
well,
whatever one
they'd
you
be
have.
about 5 feet wider, the sidewalks. So that would allow for fresco dining.
okay. 'Cause
And
I'm
we're,
just thinking
one
right
of the
now.
things we had talked about, previous administrator and, which is a good idea, was allowing open intoxicants in the downtown quarter. I know we get in an uproar about walking outside and stuff, but, or at least in front of the business, allow open intoxicants.
Or even like some of the, like Chicago, places that we've eaten outside, there's like a
Yeah.
gated in area. I just wanna make sure that the sidewalks are wide enough for that, cause I think of.
We're gonna widen them up as much as possible.
Okay,
And we still have to maintain a 12-foot lane for the county.
Yeah.
But right now, we've got about a 17-foot lane. I'm not sure, Dan might know better, but there's enough room to pull the sidewalks out 5 feet.
okay.
Do our curve where you can hop up, and it'll be much more walkable. Again, once you close it off, once the bypass is done, we can close off all of downtown and just,
Carl,
all
I don't
kinds
know
of fun.
I always thought that was 44 feet of lane through there, so I don't know.
You don't know if
I don't know what the actual measurements are for that.
no,
that
it's,
section, so-
right now it's 50 feet curb to curb.
Yeah. And it's so far into the future, I just wanna, when I look at this, my first thought is we need to make sure those businesses can use their fronts, because they can't all use their backs.
Yeah.
My first thought is how much snow are we gonna push up on that sidewalk?
And those business owners are responsible for.
It'll be
removing
easier to
snow
get it
in
off
their
when you don't have
business.
people honking at you and flipping you off.
Yeah.
So,
I know, my kid shovels downtown, I know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and he doesn't.
Yeah, cause they have no place to go with it, that's not.
yeah, well,
Now yeah.
we've got the pusher blade, and it actually goes faster, but the traffic has just gotten so bad that now the guys are starting at midnight sometimes, and that's a lot to ask of our guys.
Yeah.
Let that bypass go around us, and heck, we can shut Main Street down if we want to.
Well, that was the first thing that came to mind when Julie said, well, if they put a little, like, cause I've been in Chicago, it's nice to eat outside.
Yeah.
But they put those fences up, they're usually metal, and you sit right up against it, people walk past you, but that kinda gets, I don't know how they deal with the snow when it comes to.
Well, there's
that.
been some changes over the years, some administrators, some board members don't like me getting the snow off the sidewalk ahead of time with the snow blower, so we don't, because otherwise we have to do it twice.
Yeah.
Because if we clear up the street, everybody's gonna throw everything out the street. So we go downtown and snow blow off the sidewalks as much as we could and get yelled at.
Well, it's an all or nothing.
It's a lose-lose.
Yeah,
for the public
I-
works.
It's gotta be all or nothing, not
Yeah.
just one side or.
I just say, cause there's no place to go with the stuff as you get,
Yeah.
as you get downtown, there's no place to shovel the snow to. And if you widen the sidewalk, now you've put on the.
Which is why we got.
I like the wide sidewalks, don't get me wrong, I'm just trying to think ahead to, the other issues you're gonna run into is that now these people have a bigger area that they have to get rid of the snow from, and they still don't have a place to get rid of it right now.
Yeah, I just like the functionality of it.
I love it, it looks great.
If you could get the business owners to find a unified theme, whether it's Western or old, Gothic, anything, just figure out something and fix
Color
up your
scheme,
buildings.
yeah.
Yeah. There's a few nice ones down there.
Well, I mean, they did that where I used to live, they did that up in Park City in Utah.
Yeah.
If you've ever been there, they created a building ordinance, and they're required, I mean, after they agreed to it, anybody who builds, anybody who does anything is required to conform to that facade. So that way everything is
We
standard.
have that now.
Last year.
We do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A downtown zoning code, but if you owned the
It's
business,
grandfathered in.
grandfathered, but now change of ownership, so Pork sold to Brian, you know.
Like Otter
So-
Creek meets that now?
So there's definitely
No.
a grandfathering.
No?
And that, but it's who enforces, who do we have to enforce that at this point?
Yeah.
So right now it's really not in.
If we set aside some money and made it, you know, if you agree to fix up the front of your building, we'll forgive $5,000, 5 out of 10,000 or something like that.
Yeah, it could be an ordinance violation right now, it's just not enforced right now.
Yeah.
Jim. We actually do, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool, we even had size of signs, we put a lot of effort into that.
Yeah, I mean, they do it with, I thought it was, when they first did, I was living out there when they first did that out in Utah.
Oh.
And, I mean, they make McDonald's do it, they make Walmart do it, everybody,
Yes.
everybody had to conform to
Yes.
to that. And they have their own standards everywhere else around the country, but if they build there, that's the way they look now.
It's the
Yeah.
same as in Carmel, Indiana, everything had to be 3 stories in this one section. So McDonald's has got warehouse space above it, because it has to be 3 stories.
I mean, it looks great when they do it, I mean, it's outstanding.
When this is all said and done, I think that downtown zoning, what was created is just the stepping stone into what that downtown will look like. I think it'll be phenomenal.
Hortonville's got a lot going for it, Jim, and I know we can take the easy way out, drop taxes right now, and then take it in the shorts later. If we can just keep it as nice, smooth, gentle decline, we can get all this done and more.
Allows this stuff to happen, yeah.
And,
Are there any issues with the ones that are in 2021?
yeah, look at 2021 and really, if anything sticks out, or,
Well, they'll have another opportunity for that budget.
yeah.
Yeah, but we wanna know if we have to change something sooner so that we can figure out some things, because we're planning, some of this needs to get planned soon. Whether it's, I don't know.
I do have a question about zero-turn mower. Can't we just buy one of those?
Yeah, but they're so nice, we wanna buy another one.
Okay. No, really, I mean, I just remember, I can remember when.
I wanna get rid of one of my Kubotas. Sorry, but that's all. I'm not being snotty,
No, I
sorry.
didn't, no, I just saw it and I thought, well, did ours go to hell, or?
We've got 2 Kubotas, they're specialized. They got the front mowers, but one of them has a blower, one has a sweeper. We want to eventually get down to 1 Kubota or 1 Unitrack and just have, I wouldn't say a fleet, but a couple of nice zero turns. Because these are high dollar zero turns, they're all fully suspension all the way around. So you can mow flat out. One guy mows, in a day and a half, 2 days, what used to take us all week in the old days. So they're well worth it, but yeah, it's just like David talked about, we have to start thinking about, or not David, but the other guy, about better ways of doing things, and zero turn versus clunky Kubota or John Deere is just the way to go.
The man hours are just too important to use up on an inefficient piece of equipment.
Well, speaking of mowing, I saw in the invoices that we're still paying for the graveyard mowing service.
Yeah.
I thought we had talked about getting rid of that.
No, David had talked about getting
David
rid of
had
that. I never
talked
talked
about
about
getting
getting
rid
rid of
That's
All right,
difficult.
well, I just remembered a conversation about it.
that. That's such a time consumer.
Okay.
That,
Unless we
it's
hire
not
another
even, I'm not even gonna discuss it. It's just a waste of time for us to try to mow it. It takes so much of my manpower
And the phone calls that come in.
and the complaints.
So,
Yeah.
the electrical upgraded Otto Miller, is that kind of what was presented to us? But we-
Yeah, I pushed it off for a year.
We
What am I
both
looking at
agreed
here?
that there's like 200 and something thousand
Oh, the last page.
worth of Otto Miller upgrades in the next 5 years, that
Ah.
it makes no sense to do that without
Doing it all.
HYS and the school district being in on it. Whether they
Okay.
wanna commit time and say that the school district's gonna be there for 10+ years, or whatever, but there's
Yeah.
gotta be some type of negotiation, I would think, between the
Yeah.
school district. and
We gotta get a new administrator in place so we can actually have some authority to talk with the school district.
Right.
And, HYS is, yeah, they're
Okay.
HYS. They're not playing nice, I should say, I don't know, they're not. So,
Well, I think this year hurt them too. They were closed down. They didn't make the money that they thought they were gonna make on a normal year. So I think that's gonna hurt a lot.
yeah, well, they're still playing up there, and
Yeah,
they've told me, everything they've done, everything they told me they didn't do, remember, they lied to me or whatever, but, and they give my people a hard time, so, I'm not very happy with them right now, so.
Which should be allowed.
So, but looking at this, not to change the subject, I see basketball and tennis courts, $95,000. I mean, is it at a shared cost, or is that our cost 100%? Because you have on there historical sites paying for half the display cases, and I don't think anyone's ever shown us any kind of money on that. I guess, is it the assumption that they're gonna split 50-50, or is there an assumption that the basketball and tennis courts are?
That's not a split, but we were looking for historical society. 'Cause
Yep.
the word on the street was they had a lot of money.
Oh, you're mistaken on that.
No, that's straight up in the budget for us.
All right, and then the basketball and tennis court, is that, I guess you said that you're working with Peter on some things, or is that only civic association with splash pad, or is that?
That's all village.
This
That's
is all,
village.
everything in there.
Okay.
If it's green, it's in the, it's part of the loan or
Police
whatever.
SUV, is that you?
Yep.
Okay. Well, obviously it's you, but
What's the grain bin?
Huh?
What's the grain bin gazebo?
Yeah, well, I'll show you.
Okay.
have you seen the corn critter at my house? My corn critter.
Green bin gazebos are,
Well,
I don't know who has
Julie
the
lives
gazebo book, but I want
Yeah.
to.
No, Julie's not moving, that's cemented in, you can't take it.
Oh,
But, I
take it.
guess I'm a little curious about that cost too,
I got
but,
one being
What?
built right there.
Where's,
Where's
What
the
else
bin?
is talking about?
Has them too.
but maybe I'm not thinking of something
did I
that
miss
you're
that
thinking of.
somewhere?
The green bin?
Yeah.
No, Civic Association doesn't have $95,000 or anything close to it.
But is
If
it a
we're gonna
shared
redo
cost?
basketball court, it's 60 grand just for the concrete.
I can imagine.
Wow.
Is it gonna be concrete or
Why
like
is
a
it 60,000
rubberized?
for concrete for a basketball court?
Well, basketball and
And the
tennis court.
tennis.
Why is it 60,000?
Oh, yeah.
That's what I was
Yeah.
quoted.
I look at that and go, is that
How bad
something,
do we need that?
tennis court I would say,
This thing?
no, I didn't say basketball court more, but do we need concrete?
I don't know, people are out there playing tennis.
I think a pickleball court.
You
Yeah.
look at the
A big,
commercial club park
cast
and
iron
the
stove.
kids are
Yeah,
playing
second one.
on that court all the time, and I'm pretty sure it didn't cost no
I have one.
$95,000
Pouring the concrete.
Yeah.
For what?
for the basketball court and the tennis
Well,
court.
But,
That seems extreme.
And
It's not necessarily 100% accurate. It's an estimation that we're doing without going out for quotes or anything. If there's leftovers,
then you can move another project.
then we
or
can move
you
that
can-
into the reserve where we can't move anything, we can't have anything scheduled to go into reserve. So any amount that is over budgeted, let's say we have an extra few $100s here, we can put that into the capital projects reserve that can be used at a different time for capital projects.
Because just 2 months ago, what was, I mean, and I get this is absolutely a fluid document. Otto Miller, oh, that's Otto Miller, never mind.
It was
Was
at,
Miller Park,
I think-
25,000.
Well, an administrator in the past had me get quotes for redoing the tennis courts. It was $62,000 for tearing it out, putting new concrete in there. Now, that's not counting nets, posts, basketball, commercial grade basketball. I mean, yeah, I got 25 grand in there just for that. That stuff's not cheap, I mean.
Well, I'm not saying that, I just want to say, like, I guess my biggest question was, is I always was under the impression when Peter presented this for Civic Association, it's not fair, he's not here.
It wasn't,
But
I don't know what
remember,
he presented, it wasn't, he can't pay for that.
okay, I thought it was like all those improvements at that park was sort of like, not that they're paying for it 100%, but that it
They're
was
not
like a shared
paying-
cost, so
they-
the shared
yeah,
cost is
We're not
gonna
getting
be,
anything done if they pay for it.
okay,
This is village taking it on. I don't bank on somebody,
okay,
you know.
I just want to be, because it was presented
Otherwise
in
it
a
won't get
fashion
done.
that made it sound like that was what they were gonna do.
So you don't have any quotes for the basketball court or the pavilion right now?
No,
These are just internal estimates?
Yeah,
correct, 100%.
Okay. So an expenditure this large, are you gonna come back to the board at all?
oh, yeah.
100%.
Okay. I mean,
This is such a weird, I mean,
All right,
honestly, it's
so-
like 2 months ago, it changes.
This is
Yeah,
kind
to
of
me-
like,
yeah.
and I don't know if anybody's seen that big red house where Dr. Town used to live, but there's a green bin type gazebo on the side of it. Anyways, there's a company that sells them new, that you can get them anywhere from 12 feet up to 26 feet.
Okay.
Uh,
So where's this one going?
Well, I just wanted the little one back here on the trail, and there was talk of putting one at Blackwater Park down on the end.
That's the next year though.
Yeah.
for reference, the gazebo at the Veterans Park is used frequently. You may not see people there, but there's a ton of people in like a sitting area. It's used all the time. People that ride their bikes into town from Wheel Wash,
Go get a coffee,
sitting,
sit there.
that is a sitting place for a lot of, there's a lot of people that use that gazebo. So I think if given that something like that was in a more, I like the idea back here, but I think if it's in a more public place.
I like the idea of putting it, I mean, you're working on putting a trail downtown, or actually not just downtown, like all through. I mean, I like the idea of that, but I would say the same thing. I would put it in an area that's more heavily utilized.
More high profile.
Yeah.
Instead of Horton Hills back in here, or
Not
whatever
back
you call
Oh,
it.
it was only a couple thousand for back here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not even worried
We got
about
a lot
that.
of people that
Oh.
work back there though.
Yeah,
The
there
black,
is.
the one in Black Otter is more like this one here, or that one's a larger one, but we'd be looking at probably a 24 footer.
Where would you put it in
Yeah,
Black
'cause
Hawk?
we
Because I
got-
don't
we
see
got
it in the,
14.
Oh, yeah,
It's
it's not
not
on
in
here.
there.
Don't worry, yeah, again, this was made for a grant.
okay,
Well,
so, but
where-
where would you put it in
On the
this
map.
Oh,
aspect?
Black Otter Park? Down towards the end,
Like back
on
by
the
the
right,
back
or on the
playground?
left, down near the water, yeah.
Okay.
On the left or right? Probably
On the left,
Well,
you see the boat dock and the parking, or the kayak launch and the parking on the right?
Mhm.
Yeah, we'd be on the left in that green area. Great spot for it.
Okay, all right.
Uh,
And that's what you're talking about here, this, on the 2021.
No.
What are we talking, that's why you said if we have any questions on 2021, that's what
I'm sorry.
Right.
Yeah,
that-
14
so for
14 free for a
2021,
gazebo
if
sign.
he wants it for the back over there.
So the 14.3 is for the one back here.
Oh, no, that amount there will pay for the big one. I don't know, the one back here is, yeah, that's way too much. Again, this is very dynamic, as Julie pointed out. For 14.3, I can put one down at Black Otter, so you might as well change that to Black Otter.
The only reason we switched it out is because we didn't know if we had enough for it.
Yeah, some of the smaller items were bouncing
We
back
can
and
switch
forth.
that out for the Black Otter one.
Yeah,
So the 14.3 on 2021 is for the Black Otter.
yeah.
24
Pay
foot.
for it, yeah.
Right.
Not the 12 foot.
Yep.
Okay.
See right here, a 27 footer, 65.50, I don't know if you can see it, but you still have to pour the concrete, you gotta run, so yeah, that, by the time we run sidewalks to it and everything, we'll probably be right around 12, 14. I don't wanna go out and get bids, competitive bids for each and every item in here, so it's
I get
rough,
it.
my
I
best
get it.
guess.
Yeah.
We just want to make sure which one it's actually where it's going.
You know, if we end up saving 5,000 from every project, we put it in the secret fund, so.
This,
No.
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 Then you end up with your 1.5.
No,
no time.
no extra 1.5 million.
You wonder how we get there. So,
Yeah, so, the pavilion, how big of a pavilion are you putting into Miller Park?
Miller Park,
At
where's that
65,000.
located? Well, this is something,
Well, it would have to go to the public facilities and kind of go through what they want.
yeah,
I mean, do you remember when they put the one in Commercial Club? How much was that?
oh, well, that one they kinda did in increments. This is, oh boy, this is a nice one here. Peter wants one. I should say Peter doesn't drive everything, but he thought we could build a pavilion similar to this, and, one end,
It has like the kitchen
one end would
area.
have a kitchenette, and then we'd have a little, snack shack on the other end, and then in the middle would be like a mechanical room where if we did do a splash pad next to it, the splash pad is not in the right spot here. I would have it over here between the sidewalks.
The triangle area.
Yeah, the pavilion's not shaped, not pointed the right way either, but the splash pad would be between the pavilion and the ball diamonds, right in that area. The full
Okay.
basketball, tennis court would be where they're at. The parking lot's right.
So the splash pad would be in the triangle cutout area?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, somewhere here. But yeah, it'd have a kitchenette that we could rent out when we rent the pavilion.
Okay.
Uh,
That would explain a little bit better the 65,000 for a pavilion.
Yeah, there's a lot of concrete, a lot of footing, I mean, you put footings in for each post, we gotta run utilities over there, electrical over there. It's like building a small house, so If it's only 55, we'll be
But
lucky.
it becomes an income source too.
I-
because
yeah.
You rent it out, right? So
Potentially.
now it becomes an income.
It's not unlike the Opera House. You take it, you eat a little bit just because it's in.
No, agreed, but
Yeah,
it's another amenity for people to rent for graduation
But
parties.
Miller Park is a nice park and it's so underdeveloped. The tennis courts right now are junk. I can't do any more with them. The
There's
cracks.
not a lot of parking there.
There's,
No,
no.
that's the problem.
That
And
could
we
be a
wanna
real
expand the
issue
parking.
if we're gonna rent
Pavilion.
that out with a,
Yeah.
That's the extension.
The parking is in next to the
Pavilion.
CIP. So what I wanna do is that area, that grassy area between the tennis courts and the current parking lot, is excavate all that out, get some gravel in there.
But we're looking at building,
Miller Park's got a ton of money in it next year.
but we're looking at building a pavilion that could potentially have an event that may be 50 to 75 people, but do we have adequate parking?
It says parking lot
Yeah.
improvements is in there too, it's underneath.
Yeah.
It's underneath there?
Yeah.
Yeah, because the
It's
parking
on
lot
the
doesn't look like
big
this right now,
map,
that's for
too.
sure.
No, it
Well, it's
looks
on the
like
big map, but is that
Right.
enough to adequately give enough parking for that facility?
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Well, it's all we can do.
How much parking's on the street there with that curve? Or is that
Well, I
much
wouldn't park
parking?
We've seen, you
There
know,
isn't there's no parking on that
That's
curve.
32 stalls, I mean, according
you
to the
can't
picture,
park
whether
on that
that's to
curve.
scale or not, but,
if they carpool, that's 70-something people right there.
yeah, I mean, that's,
Everybody already complains about no
seriously?
parking. Everybody
Who
already
carpools?
complains about parking.
Oh, bring your
Minimum
husband and
people.
wife together.
Parking tickets.
He's talking 2 people per car, that's husband and wife, that's,
And 3 teenage kids,
yeah.
and each have a car.
Yeah.
Just
Well,
kidding.
that's
To be
the
honest-
best we can do, Julie.
to be honest, they could park right behind the Opera House and walk down that hill and get to the park.
Yeah, yeah,
People
yeah.
do it all the time.
Yeah. It doesn't show it, but originally that trail was supposed to come up to the Opera House parking lot.
Well, I just hate to spend all this money if we aren't gonna have parking.
Oh, we'll have parking, but
Okay.
we're only gonna be able to have so much. I mean, we can't
They're
We
cutting
can't
into
pave
the
over the
green
entire
space right
park.
now to make parking, so that, I mean,
You know,
that's,
There's
that's
also
cool.
parking behind the Opera House there.
That's what I just
Is
said, they
there-
could walk down the hill.
Yeah, they can walk down the hill, it's connected, it's absolutely
It is
connected.
connected.
Sorry, Shauna,
Well, when
I
we
just
used to
figured it
have-
out in my head.
We used to have 4th of July.
My
down
kids
at
go
the
down
park.
it every day, so they like to roll down the hill.
Let's say we have 4th of July, but times get good again, people can go out and, we had 4th of July down at Miller Park and everybody would park, a lot of people would park up here and go down to Miller Park, cause that's where the tractors were, or the cars.
Or you could, I mean, there's a crossroads there, Cherry Street and whatever, I mean, it's not like it's that far.
And again, once the bypass is
There's
gone
traffic will be
by,
way less, people can easily cross the street there, it's not a
You know,
big deal.
And I think we're doing, the street crossing
It
with a
just
sidewalk
seems
all the way
like-
out. to
yeah, this
towards-
trail's actually gonna
Seems
cross the
like
street here.
It's not.
But once the bypass is done, then we can probably
Engineered.
allow parking on
Right.
Main
If
Street.
it's
There,
down
not on
the
that
road.
curve, though, there's not enough
To me,
room.
that's
No,
scary.
a Cherry,
Yeah.
But
Cherry,
there's no
all
semis,
those,
there's
they're
no
all
dump
right
trucks,
there.
you know,
Mill.
it's a city street now.
yeah, I know, but it's tight on that curve, though, to come into town.
Well,
I was thinking the
Well,
same
we'll
thing.
shift the
actually
road over
zero.
and we'll allow parking on one side and move the lane over.
You could do
There's all
that.
kinds of
Well,
stuff you
yeah, I
can
was thinking that too when we were thinking of bypass, but that's tight going around that
One of the
corner.
first things when I was on the board is we had a discussion where you and Sullivan went through and actually measured the width of that, and it narrows there. I remember
Yeah.
the big discussion, because it was a big no parking zone put in there. I remember the two of you actually took a tape measure and measured. How crazy that I remember that, but I just remember that narrows there.
I know, we can't get nothing by, you remember everything.
So really,
I
we
do.
should delay this project
Everything.
till the bypass goes in.
Delay
Keep
it?
that in mind.
Yeah, because you'd have more road space.
Oh,
I'm worried about the parking. That's-
well,
I am too.
I was hoping we could nibble away at this property, I mean, it might take a couple of years to get busy and popular. I say do what we can do and get it done, and if it becomes too popular, good on us.
are we gonna do anything to fix the ball diamond?
What are we gonna do?
It's a
Fix
sad
That
diamond.
is,
It's a sad, sad diamond.
It was
well,
sad
if I,
yesterday.
It's been sad since I've been in
Or you
T-ball,
make
but it's
that a
really
parking
sad.
lot.
actually, have you been down there lately?
Yeah.
It doesn't look bad.
Make it a
We
parking
rebuilt
lot.
that field, we put like $4,000 into it.
I don't think it looks, I used to play ball. in it.
It's a sand lot, I don't know how much,
Yeah.
we're not the Milwaukee Brewers, we can't do that.
I
Yeah.
aware.
And I only have so much staff.
I will tell you, my biggest concern is the timing of this, because being that my kids were in T-ball this year, the practice area, there's nowhere to get your team to practice, so this was like a main spot. You start tearing this up, especially during the ball season, you're really gonna mess around with people's ability, because the school won't let you
It
practice.
won't be that bad, because
on
by the time we dig it out and we put gravel down, they can start parking.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just don't wanna,
I think we're overthinking it. It's not gonna be that bad.
Okay.
It'll be fine.
okay.
I'm not
My
You
thought
don't
on this is
remember
you
this
can't,
conversation.
you can't do everything at once, so you have to start some stuff now. I mean, I don't think we can wait for the bypass to go through to do everything,
No, but
because you just don't have the manpower to do every project all at the same time.
no, but I think the tennis court, basketball area, that is a vast improvement in that area.
We are going
Depending on the
to,
pricing, I mean, that needs to be looked at, but those are two spots that definitely need help down there.
yeah.
May I ask why we're doing half-court basketball?
Full
and-
court is what the plan is
or
now.
the full
Again,
court?
that's MSA, don't go by that. Go by
Okay,
this.
I just,
Or
the
go
only
by
reason I'm
the
asking
CIP.
is because I do watch the kids that are playing over by the church, and I've been kind of just watching since we had that discussion, and it's a half-court thing, but I think a full court would be,
Yeah,
That's what me and Carl decided when we were talking, that it's better to do it full.
I wanted 2 half courts, but Nathan wants 1
I think a
full
full court just, because it can be still used as 2 half courts, but a full court is still playable ball.
Right.
Back was,
Well,
back
the
to
splash
back.
pad.
And a pickleball.
Okay, does
All right.
anyone else
Yeah,
have
again, this
something?
is just fodder for getting a
Otherwise,
grant.
we should move on.
Don't focus on it too
Yeah.
much.
Okay.
It's
Just
gonna
an
be a late
idea
night.
more than
Okay.
anything.
Alright, so
Are
we're,
we-
Is there any
Are we
other
just
issues
discussing?
potentially with
I think so.
2021? No? You're good with everything else?
Mhm.
Okay.
Well, we're not approving it,
no,
it's
Correct.
just a review.
but nothing's,
But
nothing's,
We,
Nothing's
some of
blaring
the
at
stuff we
you.
need to
Yeah.
start planning for, whether it's the,
Yeah, I think
I'll add it to my
we just
collection.
need
Okay.
to move on.
Great.
We've kind of beat this up. We'll move to D, village board member iPads.
Well, Nathan and I were just talking, this is the opportunity, if we want to, as a board, to get iPads for the board members. We can get it paid for by the CARES Act. We are going to be going to village-issued emails next year. So if we were to give each board member an iPad with a keyboard, they would have their village email on there, and they could just bring that to the board meetings. And if we were, or had to go virtual, we could do it with the iPads. So,
Do you need a vote or just a head nod?
a vote. It's pretty close to the 5.
I would think a vote, the quote we got right now for 8 iPads, because we figured the administrator would like one, was $4,200. That's for the iPads, 2-year Apple Care, and the smart keyboard.
And you can do this to these, look at. That's what I did during the meeting, I had to, because I'm blind, but I've done meetings with a Windows, a Mac, with a Chromebook, and I have an iPad, and I've stuck to the iPad. It is the easiest during the meetings, I can pull up maps, I'm able to make things bigger, obviously, when we see stuff small, I love the idea.
And that's the discussion on the clerk network. Some have bought Chromebooks, but they mostly
Well,
like.
Chromebooks
prefer
are
this.
garbage.
Chromebooks are garbage.
Okay,
I
they
prefer
like the
this,
iPads.
I like this, look at how big you can make that.
And is
Huh?
that for sure covered
Yeah.
under
Yes.
this care?
Oh,
Well,
yes.
is it covered, it's covered 100%, so we don't have to pay
100%, we just
anything.
have to have it paid for by, I think, November
Yeah.
6th.
And is
Surface.
this one of those, we might get the money back for
Oh,
it,
no,
or
this is,
this is already
There's
paid?
been many municipalities who've gotten.
some of the things these municipalities are getting is unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
The only thing you have to worry about is that you have to find, it has to be something that it was not budgeted for, that it's COVID related, and that it's something that's necessary, okay? Those are your 3 primary things that you have to have. So then they'll come back and they'll audit, they could audit you in 4 or 5 years, and then ask for their money back if they find it was something that you didn't need.
That
It
you
wasn't
budgeted
budgeted for, and it wasn't a
And we could say we
COVID-related
need
thing.
it because we need, if we have virtual meetings, and it was not budgeted for.
And we could all have the same exact device, same exact app,
Yes.
which, because we tried virtual, it was choppy, but if we all had the exact same, because I'm on virtual meetings all day for work, so, and everybody has the exact same app and the exact same thing, and it's seamless.
The
This was a
county-
little
Like I said,
choppy
one-
tonight.
The
Even
county-
if one person wants to be, is gone because they're sick or they have a family member with it, they can still call in through that with the rest of the board members seeing that person when they speak and speaking to that person as well.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, I mean, the other thing to consider is that if you start this as a precedent, then you're going to be replacing them somewhere down the road at the cost, on our cost.
Correct.
Personally, I wouldn't use one. I don't see a need for it. I brought computers here with me. I got my choice of any computer that I want because I have 50 laptops, touchscreens, flip over everything, iPads, anything that I want I can bring in, and I just choose not to bring it in after a while because it's convenient for you and it works for you. It doesn't work for me. So personally, I wouldn't use it. And the only if it's paid for 100%, I'm great with that. But you're setting a standard to have to pay for it in the future because you won't have the CARES Act next time when you want to replace them.
Right. One thing it does do, it takes village emails off personal computers. I know at county board, they went to all iPads for all their members, so they bring the meetings so that, you know, if there's some requisitions or requests,
Yep.
open records law, it gets it off your personal
Well,
computer.
the company, the email, issuing the email has nothing to do with the iPad itself.
Correct.
No.
So,
Correct.
yeah, so those two things they're not tied together.
so,
So if they give me at Hortonville email address, which I don't currently have, and you want, I mean, if I have an iPad, it's available on my PC, it's available everywhere. I wouldn't use the iPad during the day because I'm on a computer all day long. So I would set my Outlook to create another inbox and say, here's my other email address, and when Jane sends me an email, I would get it on my work computer. So it wouldn't affect that particular issue. It's not tied to the device itself. Do you follow what I'm saying?
so if you
Yeah.
Okay.
you choose not to have your village email on your personal computer, that's your choice. Like I have mine on my phone because it's easy, I can do that. But if we ever were like subpoenaed for, or even an open records request, it doesn't matter what device, it's the content and that, it's the content, so to speak. I mean,
I definitely like the idea of having separate issued email addresses. Yeah, because right now, if anything happens, then we gotta give up all of our personal, because mine goes to my work email. I'm like, okay, well, I guess you get every one of PC Mechanic's emails.
Yeah.
So, I
Yeah,
think it's
good
important
luck
too
going
for
through
the board member. I don't know when you're up, your position is up, you may not be a board member for,
Sure.
it's there for the next board member
Yes.
who might come in, so it's
And
an option for someone who might want to go virtual.
Yeah, and then you would have, but like I say, and that would be the only point that I bring up, is that it's introducing a recurring cost. That the expectation would be that as they age, you would have to replace them, and if they get broken or damaged, you would have to replace them, and those costs wouldn't be rolled into the CARES Act,
Going forward.
going forward.
What's the cost of each one of them?
$2.99.
Which is a heck of a lot cheaper than a computer. Would this also have cost savings for us when it comes to printing and paper?
Well, right now.
Considerably, right?
It would, yes. Right now, I don't print for anybody.
Because that was why we initially said that, like, board members would do, like, virtual, like, we could bring in computers and that sort of thing. Like, I don't want a board packet. Some people might want a board packet. I have all this paper. I hate bringing home paper.
That makes sense.
You know, yeah. And as far as, like, I've got this iPad, which is probably a year and a half, maybe 2 years old. I have another one that's 6 years old and another one that's over 10 years old that still uses the big, huge plug.
Yeah.
The longevity of an iPad is such a,
But
I get you.
How much did you say?
$2.99.
For how many?
That's per unit.
Where can you buy an
$199
iPad for
For how many? It's
$299?
through Apple, it's a government, for
Okay.
government.
It's not the up-to-date, most recent ones.
It's a,
So then, one
Which one is it?
question, why would you not include, you're saying, just the board members and the administrator?
Why wouldn't you extend it out to
You
everyone at the meeting?
you come to the meeting, you come to the meeting, you come to the meeting, why would you stop there then? Why would you
Legal as well.
not get the whole full?
Because we use, because we do more, and we have to have Word, and we have to have all, so we just go with laptops.
Which iPad?
Okay.
I think that was just to give an idea too, we didn't
Yeah.
really price it out or
It's
bid it
32
out, right?
gigabytes.
No, we priced it out.
Was that,
We
was it
go through
iPad 4
government
or
website.
iPad mini, iPad,
Better
Air.
option.
Air,
What?
iPad, I don't know if they have
Nathan, was it
five.
the seventh generation?
It was the 7th generation, 10 a 10.5 inch screen.
Yeah, 10
Yeah,
bucks.
yeah.
Pro.
You pay for that.
Actually, it was 8th generation,
No.
same one I had.
I can do data,
Um,
I don't.
It's $299. You can find them on Amazon for around that much.
Really?
But you can only buy one through Amazon, so we have to go through the government site.
How many, 8?
We can get 8, and then there's the
And the
ex-
care and whatever,
the
that's
key-
all about
the smart keyboard is actually very expensive. That's like 150 or so per unit. I believe.
But then
And
each
it's-
board member, okay, so let's say I take mine home and I drop it, then am I responsible for replacing,
Yeah.
keeping that replaced?
We would have to create a policy.
I think we'd have to create a policy, because the
Right.
thing is, I likely would want a case for, like, I've got this magnetic dealio that helps hold it in a keyboard, I've got one of those too. But I would say that board members would be responsible for keeping it in the condition they were given it. So we'll have to create a policy if this,
Right.
if we approve this, but I would say, you know, because if I drop this, that should be my responsibility.
Yeah, that would be the
Is
other.
there any insurance on these that you can get?
2 years.
Yep, we
It's
got
a 2-year. If it breaks, you can send it in and they'll.
That's 50.
Not if you break the screen though. Because Apple iCare doesn't cover my broken screen.
Okay. I don't know what it all covers. I'm not gonna claim it.
It
though.
doesn't.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah,
Mhm,
I think
I
we've
know.
got it covered ours, but
Doesn't cover my screen.
I've got a daughter who's rough on phones. Maybe we bought the extra insurance, I don't know. I guess I'm okay with it. Obviously Jim has some concerns, but I mean, I don't know where everyone else sits, but I know that this has been my go-to. Bob, did you have something you wanted to say? You were kind of like looking like you wanted to talk.
I was, no.
I
Okay,
mean, if
I
it's
think the
something,
savings on this for you guys is bigger than you might realize.
oh yeah.
Just organization, I think are good.
I mean, I'm okay with buying them, I just was voicing concerns. I personally probably wouldn't use it.
But you would have to use it if we had to go virtual, if we get the.
We could stick in case somebody drops one, then they can use Jim's.
Yeah, I
If we
mean,
had a virtual,
I mean,
yeah.
I would make a note or somebody still be around, so when it comes around time for them to be retired or something like that, that the next board understands that they got them because it was free, that it's not something they're gonna continue to do. You know, somebody, I assume somebody will be around.
And we
You know, if they can
struggled-
bring that up.
Yeah, and we struggled with a virtual like environment because it was choppy, it wasn't what we thought it would be. But if ever at a time we're forced to do something virtual, then it would be nice if we just all had the same thing.
So do we need a vote?
I think so.
Do we need a
I'd
motion?
would say,
I would say.
I'll make a motion. But my question is, are we saying 8 or are we saying, I guess are we,
Actually,
We
we
get
can,
along.
I think we don't have a specific monetary amount. for a
so you
proposal.
have 7 board members and who else were you including?
The administrator.
What about-
Administrator?
What about Bob? Do
And I
you-
thought about, no?
No.
Okay.
Bob, we
what
pay
about-
him enough.
Well, that,
It's a
that's,
contract.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm contracted, I
Okay.
understand
Okay.
that.
So what about
I
the
mean-
clerk though? I mean, or clerk slash
I
deputy
think the
clerk?
thought, I think our initial thought with the administrator was it would be nice for the TVs. I'm willing to donate my Apple TV because it sits inside because it doesn't do what I need it to do. So that way it could just transfer up there.
It's almost like you read my mind, because I was just gonna say, if we do this, we should maybe look into an Apple TV,
Right.
just to Bluetooth
So
it right to
basically,
this.
the
Yeah.
administrator could have that full control of that screen from his iPad without any cords or anything. So it's a lot nicer that way. And that was kind of one of the thoughts with the administrator. And it's
Yeah.
also nice if the administrator needs to do a FaceTime with one of you two, or sorry, all of you, or one of you, he can. I guess all of you know because of the quorum, but if he wanted to talk with one of you at a certain time, or she, whoever the administrator is at that point, they could do a FaceTime conversation rather than you having to call or come in. It's just another option.
So my
That-
question is it 8 or is it 9? I mean,
It would be 8.
8.
7 board members with 1 administrator is kind of what we initially went for.
And Apple TV, you're looking at donating, we're not looking at that expense.
No, although that is covered under the CARES Act.
I
Other
think that would be
communities have
pushing it. I don't use
TVs
mine,
have
it
been
sits in
paid
my
for.
closet right now, so.
Well, can we,
I threw one on eBay. Somebody dropped it off the
They're super
recycle.
cheap, so.
just as an FYI, this TV was really cheap and the resolution is just really, and it's 5 years old now, 6 years old.
I would say, I mean, I'm okay with getting them, but I would suggest just, you know, holding them in a reserve and then issuing them out as they, you know, as they're needed for, like myself, like I wouldn't want one. I wouldn't want you to give me one. You can give it, you can keep it in reserve, use it for somebody else in the office. I'm not an Apple person. I don't like using Apples. I have plenty of experience, so don't ever try to convince me of it.
No, but if we ever had to go virtual, do you have the
I
ability?
I have more computer experience than everybody in this room combined. I can go virtual anytime that I really need
And
to.
that's, I guess that's my concern,
So-
is that if you didn't have an iPad.
And I wouldn't want the responsibility of having another new device in my house because enough of them get lost already. I've got so much electronics.
But we would still purchase 8.
Yeah, you can purchase as many as you want. I just would
Yeah,
have some sort of a plan for
Yeah.
keeping it somewhere because I wouldn't want one.
All right, then I'm gonna make a motion that we move forward with purchasing 8 Apple iPads with using dollars in the CARES Act. And can I add to that motion that we should then also, maybe on the next agenda or something, look at creating a policy, or is that something, I just wanna make sure we have a policy in place for them?
I have sample policies from other clerks. but
Okay, thank you, I just wanna make sure that's part of it.
Second?
Roll call, Julie?
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion carried. E, delineation results on parcel 240-046400.
All right, I'm just gonna hand out the delineation and just, speak on it briefly. Now, it's about what we expected. I spoke with, the, people at McMahon about, we're concerned with the top acre, which would be roughly, the same width as, Bob Harvey's tire shop there, so. You share that with James. Now you see, roughly out of that 1 acre that we were looking at selling, approximately 0.46 of it is wetlands. Wetlands can be mitigated, it's just very expensive. Average municipalities typically don't mitigate wetlands, but private companies and stuff do it all the time. It's typically about $75,000 an acre to mitigate the wetlands. A lot of that goes into DNR banks or whatever, however they work that. So we got approximately a half of it's wetlands, so if a company was to come in there and build on it, they'd probably have to spend $40,000 mitigating the wetlands. But what they get out of that is prime frontage in a great spot. So value-wise, we didn't want to get into numbers, but value-wise, we can't get much for that land because of what you have to put into it. So talking to Peter a little bit before he left, while we wouldn't give it away, we could only get a little bit for it because somebody would have to turn around and invest all that money into mitigating the wetlands. So that's where we're at. And I think me and Nathan were discussing earlier that you know, if somebody was to move forward and want to buy that land from us, they would have to be made aware of the expense for mitigation. It's assuming they can do it. The village would have to help them do it because we'd have to write letters saying, you know, this is prime general commercial frontage, you know, we support it being developed, blah, blah, blah.
We'd have to mitigate it on that property.
If they have to put in ponds or something like that, we'd have to be willing to maybe let them put it on our side of the property, which is again not the end of the world. Ponds are nice, especially if they're done right. So we're not going to get the big chunk of money we thought we were going to get. So I guess just wanted you guys to know that the land's not worth what we thought it was worth because of what it would take to get it buildable.
I know there's one other mechanism where the wetlands could be designated on a different site
Yeah.
and built into it, but I think that's, for every acre that you do, you have to do 1.15 or 1.25 more acres
Yeah.
remediate it.
I think what we should do is, you know, a head nod from you guys for us would be to, you know, if we have somebody come forward and we tell them that we'd be, I don't know, and we're not gonna talk prices tonight, but we certainly wanna cover the CSM and any attorney fees. But beyond that, I think we're pushing what this land is worth to us because, again, what somebody would have to spend on it. So I think we got an idea of a number we'd be looking at. The key is to get it developed and get that income coming in every year for the next thing.
Well, CSM.
That's if you want to go that route. I mean,
CSM, attorney fees, administrative fees to help with letters, and any possible fees we would have putting in a pond.
well, we wouldn't pay to put in the pond. They would have to pay that.
That's part of it.
That's part of
Well,
it.
but that would be part, but I mean, and also because it's gonna, if we have to write letters to the DNR administratively, is that gonna be kind of a
Yeah.
process?
Not really. I mean, I've done it for all kinds of people.
So, are we gonna be able to use this property for any, the area behind it for anything? What
Well,
can we
if you
still
look
do?
at it, there's some area, now, if you go straight north and south, you can see
Right.
that area is buildable pretty much.
Right.
But that's not an acre either. If you were to go north and south with an acre, it would still be almost half of it wetlands. So it doesn't do them any good.
Yeah, no, I mean, so,
But no,
say we sell the 1 acre.
Yeah, we could
Let's
sell the
just
1
assume
acre up
that,
front.
right, and we could, somebody we can, regardless of what we get for it. The remaining portion, that's
We could
between
put
there
in a
and the
parking
lake.
lot for a dog park or something like that, and be able to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, or we could,
Last
we
time
could
I-
build another pavilion, or we could sell it to another company that wants to build it, or I suppose you can do anything you want there.
It might
Well,
be
we
something else where somebody is,
We
does
could-
have a plan to build on that, maybe they can jockey their building to put it further back, run more lengthwise,
Yeah,
so that's an option up to them also.
We could, I mean, in the back area that's all wetland, we can put a pavilion and stuff back
oh,
there?
way back here?
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
He's
no,
talking
I'm
about
just,
this entire 8
No, no,
5-9
we're-
acres.
that is strictly villages,
That'd be silly.
natural area. We bought that to have trails and stuff, and,
well, that's why I'm asking, what can we do with that now that it's designated, now that we know that
well,
it's designated?
it's always been wetlands, we just wanted
Yeah.
to delineate it,
Yeah,
so we
now
know
that-
exactly where it's at. The only thing we could really do anything with is up here.
This little strip right here.
Like, you see where it's not shaded
Yeah,
in the black box?
so we can't do anything, we can't do a dog park, we can't, what
Oh,
can
we
we
could
do?
probably do a dog park back here.
I don't think,
I thought we.
In the
were-
wetland area.
Last time I posted-
Well, I would advise that it may be contentious, but can you do it? Yeah, you can do it, so.
Is that right to do that?
no.
I don't
We
think
have,
so.
you know, we have a right to do that. I mean,
Well, is it, I mean, morally,
morally objectionable.
that's what I'm.
Uh,
I mean, we have
It's
wetlands,
really
We'd want to
unbuilt-
see,
we have an entire lake,
It's
we've got lots of
unbuildable.
wetland, I mean,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. Is there something that we can still utilize, if we, even if we
we can
sell
have
that 1
trails,
acre?
we can have, we can let people camp out there, you know, I don't know, whatever you want.
You'd
Okay.
have to check, you'd have to get a permit, you can put a trail through there.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, cause
Can't
our,
fill it all.
cause right now our bike trail runs through there, and that's wetland area up there too.
yeah.
Because we
would
put
be-
it at that setback, cause we were assuming we were gonna put a trail through there.
We would probably have to put boardwalk trails, which are fine, DNR likes them. But I guess I was confused, I was thinking what we could do with that.
Oh, yeah, I'm thinking, what can we do with
Any
this,
of it.
with all of this?
Well, the reason we bought that is not so much what we could do with that, because that brought it down to now, there's only one property owner between us and the railroad tracks. So we needed to buy that to hopefully get the next piece.
To connect Wheel Wash to Alonzo at some
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, okay. Well, no, I mean, cause originally we had talked about stuff like an archery range and a dog park, and
An
so my
archery
question
range
was,
is-
what can we, is there anything that we can still do, knowing this?
Well, if we don't do a dog park, we can certainly do an archery range, and we could put parking in up here. We could actually have a walking archery range if you want, so.
Well, I mean, that's what I'm curious as to what limitations are on us now. I mean, cause Dan was saying we have to get a
As long as
permit
you're not
just to get
disturbing-
a walk, a trail through there.
Because you bring aggregate in.
Mhm.
Yeah. So what
It's
is,
different. I don't know about.
You can put wood chips down. Not a big fan of them, they soak in pretty fast, but, well, you can mow it and just have it might have water on sometimes, but, yeah, you can do that. Whatever you want, archery range, static archery range or mobile, or dog park if we have a veterinarian approve it.
paintball?
Doesn't it? Put the building up here and have them just go back there and have at it.
Shooting range?
I look at Greenville, Greenville is beautiful, but they've got fencing. And
I had somebody
all that.
suggested to me the
This is
other
like a
day.
hold my beer
What's
one.
that?
I've heard that
Shooting
before.
range.
I've heard that before, yeah.
I heard, yeah, I designed one already, I'm just trying to find a place to put it.
Am I wrong?
It's already designed, ready to go.
Oh, please.
Okay,
The problem is lead.
yeah. Oh, yeah, cause it's water. Okay.
Yeah.
Alright. I was just curious as what our options are with that, so.
I think they're limited.
Yeah, well, I figured.
They have to
that,
be
so I was asking.
conservatory in nature.
Okay.
So is this like a DNR thing, or is this more of a land conservation, like a Jim Howlett kind of thing? Is this like a land conservation thing? Could we consult with them? That's their job.
Yeah, you can talk to them like,
I
You
mean,
have to assume it's gonna get
I would
better
think
as
this
the
is
years
like
go by, though, too.
if I looked at this, when we farmed, we had wetlands, we called Jim Howlett, and we would talk to Jim, and we would work this out. And we had buffer zones around our creek, and we were allowed to mow it once a year and use.
farmers have a lot more leeway than government.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
they will come down on us and not farmers. Farmers can spread manure next to a creek and let it run into the creek.
We had a 150-foot buffer on both
Yeah.
sides. So, I mean, we had to work with land conservation on that.
That's if they help you put in a drainage way.
Yeah,
Then,
land conservation, I wonder if they would have some options, just a thought.
Right, it's a long one.
Oh, meeting, yes.
All right, so getting back to the front. We know it's not worth much, but we don't want to lose money on if we sell it. I guess the goal is to get something for it enough to pay for,
Whatever we put in behind it.
yeah.
I know.
Well, I wouldn't
Which
say
we
we
could
get that,
discuss
but
at
Over,
another meeting.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
over so many years. Yeah, let's say it was tax
I'm
increment.
talking tax base, sorry,
Let's say it was $5,000 a year, that our share
of the tax.
of the 17,000 that they would pay, because most of it's county and stuff like that. $5,000 a year would pay for shooting range,
Over 10
dog
years.
park, over so many years. So again, it's prime frontage, but it's going to take some money to develop it, to mitigate it. I mean, we could try it ourselves, but I don't recommend it.
Why don't we bring that forward at another meeting where we can discuss it in closed session?
If we have a specific
If we're gonna set a
proposal,
price
yeah.
and stuff.
Do we need to do that, or can I just,
Could you just go to
We
like
can see
a,
what interest is.
could you just go to
Right.
a broker, real estate broker and see what they
I'll
would,
reach out to the person that showed interest and
Okay,
just let them know that half of it's wetlands.
okay.
The DNR does work with people if the price is right. So, we'll see.
Okay.
I would
That's
just
all I
talk to
got on that.
I would talk to somebody who sells real estate and just ask them what it's worth. I mean, somebody sells
No, it
commercial,
is valuable,
commercial property.
not- Whoever's interested in that,
Yeah.
whether it was,
You know,
our
that-
existing one, you just give them this and let them do their
Couldn't do
own,
it if it were.
Well, 35,000, if that's what it takes to mitigate, it might be a steal for them.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, we don't know what it's worth. I mean, you go to a commercial real estate agent and say, we're interested in selling this property, what's it worth?
But Jim, it's gonna depend on what they wanna do with it too, so if anybody interested is gonna spend some money given this delineation to see what they would wanna offer us, to see how it can be developed, and each buyer's gonna have a different, right?
Yeah.
So I think we just leave it up to the free market here, and see what.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is the best gauge of the free market is a commercial real estate agent. Because they're the ones who sell commercial property all the time. So they're gonna be able to tell you what this property is worth. That's my thought. I mean, instead of going to the buyer,
But then what?
right? What is it worth?
We're
Well-
not listing it, we're not listing it.
well, if this buyer doesn't take it, what are we planning to do with it?
I don't know.
Potentially list it to
That's
sell.
always
I mean, that would be the end target, I'm assuming. If we're gonna sell it, we're not just gonna hang on to it
The
until
only
somebody
good thing about
approaches
this,
us.
Jim, is they get the bigger commission, the more they get for it, the bigger their commission, so.
Yeah,
I would, Doesn't hurt to try.
Doesn't hurt to ask
Alright.
what it's worth.
Okay, we will move to F, any other miscellaneous topics for future discussion? Nothing? We'll go to 9, report of village officials, A, interim administrator.
Just in your packet, rather than me distorting the message of S.W. Swiderski about possible bodies on their property, I sent out the email so you could see, basically she said, we received the initial report back from the environmental team. The report indicated that there weren't any burial or artifact findings that would cause any red flags. However, the DNR and the Wisconsin Historic Preservation Database will need to review the report, agree with the findings, and sign off on the report. I've been given an indication this will take place on or before the last week of October, and hopefully sooner. So it seems like they're still moving forward, but there is that issue.
Okay. Any questions? If not, we'll move to B, clerk treasurer.
The RFP for annual audit proposals was sent out and they're due October 8th. The proposal was sent to 5 different auditors and is posted on the league's website. And we've received 2 proposals to date. We've issued 485 absentee ballots to date. 183 ballots have been returned. That's approximately 27% of registered voters that applied for absentee ballots.
Any questions for Jane?
I do. CARES Act, and I'm not asking for a dollar amount, but I know that we may not hit the cap for that. And from what I'm understanding and reading, that if we do not hit the cap and we don't use all the funds, we could help purchase items for the school district. And so instead of simply getting, like not utilizing the funds, it would be nice if we could utilize the funds to their full extent. So I guess I'd like to see if we could work with our school district to see if they have expenses due to COVID, was it unbudgeted, things that maybe they didn't get help with, but we did as a municipality, and if we use it, we use it, but if we don't, I don't want to lose it. I want to use it in our community.
And they just announced that they put it a third, so there's really actually 4 times that you can.
Okay.
So there's one that just opened up and it's October, sorry, it's October, it ends on, I believe, October 13th or 15th. And I think what they're doing is they're hoping that people will apply, they'll know what it is so that they can have the benefit to give that money to somebody else.
Yeah.
Because they want to see you give that money to somebody else.
Yes, and I just read an article that it said school districts were something that municipalities could look into. Like if we've thought of everything that we could possibly use it for, and now we just can't come up with anything else, and there's still $10,000 left.
Right.
We could work with our school district to use those dollars that were earmarked for Hortonville.
The only problem is that they give you such a short window.
Yeah.
So you have October 15th, and then you have to have everything purchased and paid for by November 1st. So it's going to be
tight. Maybe we reach out.
And maybe I think what's going to happen is because after the November 15th, then I can say, okay, I want to give the rest of my money to New London PD. And then New London can have the remainder amount.
All right, is that something that, okay, obviously if we have money that's left over, can we designate where that money goes? Like,
I believe so,
we get a
yes,
choice.
yes.
Will that come to the board?
I don't know if we're holding out because we don't know what's going to happen with the SRO positions.
Okay. I just think of, it's a use it or lose it kind of thing, and I would want to use it in our community.
Yep.
Some way.
Yeah, the school district have no problem spending it. They spend $1 million already. I talked to one of the school board members.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy.
So I mean, you ask them and 2 days later, they'll be able to
Yeah.
say, we bought this, here's some receipts.
It's crazy
So-
the amount of money the school board, or the
Right.
school has used, and if we could, I just would hate to see money on the table handed back to the state.
Absolutely.
If we can use it right here.
And we've discussed that already.
Good.
Is this auditing, is this like Kerber Rose stuff? Is that what this
Yeah,
is?
They
Just,
are our current, well.
They're a current one, this is just proposal to go out and get
Yes.
bids, okay.
Yeah.
And
Just
the
wanna
actual-
make sure I read
I
it right.
actually got Dave Eller's recommendations for auditing companies that he's been very impressed with and has worked with.
Okay,
And Kerber Rose did also get, you know,
okay,
a proposal.
just making sure I read it.
I got one today back from somebody from Illinois, a company from Illinois.
Okay.
So,
Thank you for answering that.
Okay, we'll go to C, Director of Public Works.
Just a couple of items here. We're gonna finally get into your neighborhood over there, Jim, and finish crack sealing that on the 11th. The other paving projects are now complete, so that wraps up 2017 paving and utility projects. We're gonna be doing some more maintenance, so I got the county coming in next week to do some what we call mastic patching. It's a little different type of material for doing wider cracks. So what we're gonna do is try and do Mill Street, Bakey Street, and get another 10 years out of there. So that'll take that off the CIP and put something more deserving up front. So again, mostly maintenance through the rest of the year. So and I am buying a new. Does anybody remember Mel's Bells?
Yes,
Do we have any older people in here?
Mel Conquest bells, Mel's bells.
Yeah, well, I'm buying something new that's gonna bring back those same cherished memories for you people.
Really?
The red bell?
Does that make me old?
I
They
must
look
be
like
too
they
young.
were dinging, they look like
Yeah,
they
the ones
were-
on the, across the street.
And they were called Mel's bells because Mel did
I
the
love
maintenance
those.
on them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that for Christmas?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love those.
I don't know what happened
Like
to them.
Holly Avenue we used to have?
Yeah.
They disappeared. Well, first they fell apart and they dry rotted.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cracked.
they fell apart.
They were amazing.
I am.
But I'm getting some deer and reefs. It'll go across Main Street, so
Cool.
Oh, cool.
I'm using street maintenance money to buy them, but I want to get them before I leave. So
Do we,
I just showed my age tonight is what I just did.
it's less than $5,000.
do we have a follow-up on the canning factory building?
It's down
It's down there.
Oh, it's down there? Oh, okay, sorry, I didn't read ahead.
Yeah, that's all I have.
Okay, my bad.
Anything else for Carl? If not, we'll move to
Okay.
D, Police Chief.
I handed out the activity for September. Any questions?
Assist citizen or agency?
Do I?
Assisting the citizen or agency, is that a different, I didn't remember seeing that.
Nope,
That's been there every
that's
time?
typical, that's normal.
Okay,
Portion of those are where we, go and assist Outagamie County, and the other ones could be, where we're just assisting, like, for instance, we had to help somebody get into the house, they went outside last night and locked the doors, and there was children inside the house. They couldn't open up the doors, so that would be an assist.
Any other questions?
I got one other thing I'd like to bring up.
Okay.
So we received $750 check from Country Financial, and it's for equipment. So when they posted the picture of Country Financial representatives and myself, they kind of asked what we were going to submit, or what we were going to use the $750 for. And the big thing with a lot of agencies now is they're starting the drone programs. New London's currently starting a drone program. Outagamie County's got several drones. We used a drone recently to look for, I believe an engineer fell off a train over by Dale, so they could put a drone in the air and go down the railroad tracks for search and rescue and things like that. So I kind of said that, you know, we're looking into a drone program also. And at the Senior Autumn Fest, somebody must have said something to somebody, and I have a donor that called and said that she would donate the rest of the money for the drone program, which is roughly $4,000 to $4,500. So that's
good.
That's a project that we'll be working on. We can use it with the fire department. We have an active shooter situation, lost children, water rescue, and we could use it just for,
Economic development.
yeah,
Zoning.
we can just fly it over the village just to post videos on, you know, on the website.
Traffic enforcement.
Traffic reconstruction accidents, because
Yeah.
Big Brother
they're
is
heat
watching
censored.
you.
Yeah.
Reconstructing
yeah, be
accidents, I could
careful
see
of
where
that.
that would be helpful.
Do I?
No
Be
parties in
careful,
your
big brother.
backyard.
Yeah,
No, I think of accident reconstruction, getting that aerial view would be huge.
Well, they are, because they say that, you know, if you have like a lot of skid marks on the ground, that it knows which ones were the most recent ones.
As far as the, and we're in amendment, but I told them that they should get back to me. So that's where I'm at.
Caution tape up around it now, did you see that?
No, it looked like there's some construction going on, some
There
wall
was?
construction going on in there, but I don't
When,
know.
when was that?
Last week, last week, the end of last week I walked through there.
Yeah, I would
It looked like there was an actual wall there that wasn't there before,
I just saw caution
have,
tape.
okay, they
We
might have
had
gotten
drone.
it on,
but they still got, you can still see
Oh,
through the
yeah.
building.
Yeah.
You can see, I mean, so yeah, it's nowhere near,
yeah,
but yeah,
okay. That's all I have.
okay.
G is building permit report, there's none. 10, communication and miscellaneous business. A, Black Otter Lake District News.
I gave Al a call today just to find out about the harvester, the weed harvester. It is up in Hayward and it'll probably be there through the winter, getting repaired. That's why the weeds haven't been harvested for a long time. And I believe we're gonna have a meeting this month sometime, so then I'll have more to report in November. That's all.
Okay. B, Hortonville, Hortonia Fire District News. Jim?
Nothing.
Okay. C, Gold Cross Ambulance Run reports and news is in the packet. Any questions?
It's another increase this year, just letting you know. They increased $15,000 to the budget this year, so that's what we got this last week.
Yeah, they sent us their budget numbers for that, and I called him on it, and he called me right back and explained it because of COVID, their expenses, I mean, their revenue was way down, so they're trying to make up for it. I think it was $20,000 or more,
15,
15?
So is it just for our community is that much?
every community.
So the consortium, like everybody's
Correct.
Yes.
prorated?
We
okay.
went up $5, so basically it's gonna increase on the tax bill. It's gonna, basically it affects our expenditure restraint, doesn't necessarily affect our bottom line when it comes to revenues, because it's offset by, it's on your tax.
So when we see it in our property tax bill, there's,
It's
there's an
usually
increase.
23, 25, and that's gonna then increase.
Like 35 or something?
35, 34, something like that.
there you go, Gold Cross Consortium making your taxes higher.
Yep.
Not the municipality.
D is the Hortonville Civic Association, and Peter is out. E, Senior Activities Committee.
We had our Autumn Fest, like Chris mentioned, on Tuesday the 22nd. It was a huge success. We had a beautiful day. Thank you to Chris again for getting all the people set up. DPW was here, fire department was here. We handed out around 70 picnic lunches, and I think we did 80 total for the volunteers and everybody that was working there. Lots of great feedback from the participants. The food was excellent. We went local with Donaldson's for the sandwiches and Alley Cat for the cookies, so we got really good feedback from that. Door prizes, the police department donated, was it 7? No, 5, 9, wasn't it? Weather radios, 9. And then we had a basket and a plant and some other things, so people were excited about that. The Trishaw was here, which is a motorized three-wheel bike, and over at Commercial Club, so people could go there and have rides, and a lot of people did that. The grab and go meals that have been here on Wednesdays is going to continue till the end of the year. They just bumped it again due to COVID. They got funding, and they are looking for meal delivery people to take the home delivered meals on Wednesdays too, so I was gonna talk to Nathan about that at some point, if we could do the Helping Hands van to assist with that. Our next meeting is October 15th. That's all. Yeah.
Okay, then we will move to 11, comments and suggestions from citizens present. There are none. We do not need to go into 12, 13, 14, or 15 for closed session. So then, or 16. So then we need 17, we need motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.